The brutal heart of nihilism beats strongest in the simple, devastating truth. Nothing matters, not your joy, not your suffering, not even the realization that nothing matters. At first, it may feel like liberation, like the walls of expectation and pressure have finally collapsed. But what floods in afterward is not peace. It's the silence. It's the gnawing emptiness of a universe that doesn't know your name, a cosmos that spins indifferently while you scream into its void. Nothing matters, not even that. We are taught that things should matter: love, success, legacy, morality. We grow up hearing that pain has purpose, that death is a transition, that life is a journey towards something greater. But strip away the myths, and what's left is terrifying, a brief flicker of consciousness, suspended in an infinite nothingness, clinging to meaning like a child grasping at smoke. When you look closely, even meaning itself collapses in your hands, revealing its foundation of sand. Some chase distractions, drown in romance or ideology, hoping to find permanence in impermanence. But even the most sacred truths dissolve over time. The names of kings, the words of prophets, the tears of lovers, all fade into the same silence. And when you finally see that even your despair over this is meaningless, the abyss stares back with a smirk. This is the real horror. Not that life ends, but that it was never anything more than noise in an empty room. When nothing matters, not even that, what do you do with the echo? What do you become when even purpose is an illusion? Most don't want the answer. Every achievement dissolves into oblivion. We spend our lives chasing peaks, building, striving, proving. Achievements are sold to us as permanence, as marks carved into the stone of existence. A trophy, a degree, a promotion, a legacy. But the stone is sand, and time is the wind. Every achievement, no matter how grand, dissolves. The applause dies, the headlines yellow, the name once spoken with reverence becomes a footnote, then forgotten entirely. There is something haunting in the way monuments crumble, in how once great civilizations are now nothing more than ruins visited by people taking selfies. The conquerors, the thinkers, the revolutionaries, what remains of them is filtered through flawed stories and biased records, their actual thoughts and dreams long rotted beneath the soil. Even the stars that guided them are dead now. We are told to make our mark. But the truth is, the universe does not keep score. It does not record who won the race, who gave the speech, who built the empire. It erases all. Oblivion is patient and thorough. It is not cruel, it simply is. Your greatest work, your most glorious triumph, is already fading, even as you create it. And this realization cuts deeper than failure ever could. Failure still suggests a game. Oblivion ends the game and tears up the board. It reminds you that success is a story we tell to give noise to the silence. But the silence always wins. One day, even the sun will burn out, and all that ever was will vanish without memory, without mourning, including everything you've ever done. Joy is as pointless as pain. We chase joy like a drug, desperate to feel alive, to make the struggle worth something. We are told it's the reward, love, laughter, moments of bliss that make the agony bearable. But in the cold glare of nihilism, joy is revealed for what it truly is, just another chemical flicker, no more sacred than the searing sting of pain. Both are temporary, both vanish. Neither has meaning outside the fragile biology that produces them. Your happiest memories, they're fading echoes in a dying brain. The laughter you shared, the thrill of victory, the comfort of touch, they're neurons firing in chaotic sequence, brief and blind. They do not last. They do not build toward anything. They are not protected from erasure. And just like pain, joy leaves you grasping when it's gone, wondering if it was ever real or just a trick your body played to keep you moving forward. But what cuts deepest is the realization that even joy, the one thing you were told to cling to, offers no escape. You can lose yourself in it for a moment, yes, but the void waits on the other side, unchanged and unbothered. It doesn't care that you smiled. It doesn't care that you cried. The universe makes no distinction. It records nothing. There is no divine scale balancing your suffering with your joy. No cosmic ledger. No meaning in the pleasure. No redemption in the pain. If joy is as pointless as pain, then what do we live for? That's the question that rattles in the bones when the dopamine fades, and it never has an answer. Time devours all things, including memory. Time is not your companion. It is not the wise old healer they pretend it is. Time is a beast, slow, silent, and insatiable. It consumes everything, leaving behind only dust and silence. It does not honor your effort or preserve your name. It doesn't hold on to your love, your laughter, your grief. It takes it all, even the parts you swore would never fade. We cling to memory like it's sacred. Photos, journals, voices recorded in trembling clarity. We say, "I'll never forget." But you will. Your brain forgets even the things it thinks it remembers. Faces blur, voices shift. Sensations once electric grow distant and pale. The most important days of your life will one day feel like vague rumors in your mind. The person you were, your thoughts, your passions, your entire identity becomes unrecognizable even to you. Worse still, even if you manage to remember, no one else will. Your memories die with you. All the love you gave, the beauty you witnessed, the pain you endured, it vanishes the moment your synapses fail. You think legacy will save you? Time eats that too. The names we carve into stone are worn away by wind and rain. Languages vanish. History rewrites itself. Whole civilizations are swallowed, not with violence, but with forgetfulness. Time doesn't care how loudly you screamed, how deeply you loved, or how long you held on. It keeps moving, and in its path, everything is devoured. Your joy, your pain, your story, and even the fragile, flickering memory that any of it ever happened at all. Legacy is dust waiting for wind. They tell you to build a legacy, to leave something behind, to make your mark on the world so that when you're gone, your name will live on in whispers, in textbooks, in bronze statues, beneath weeping skies. But what they never say, what they hope you never realize, is that every legacy is just dust, waiting for the right wind to scatter it beyond recognition. You could be the architect of empires, the voice of generations, the mind that bends history. But time does not preserve greatness. It erases it, slowly, then completely. Names that once shook nations are now mispronounced footnotes. Discoveries that changed the world are taken for granted by those who don't even know who made them. Monuments become ruins, stories become myths, and eventually myths fade into silence. Even the legacies we revere are shadows, distorted, simplified, reshaped by those who came later and never truly knew the person behind them. Your values will be misinterpreted, your words will be twisted, your life's work will be edited for convenience, or worse, forgotten in full. The pages rot, the files corrupt, the monuments crumble, the wind comes for everything. And if you think love will carry your name further, know this: even the deepest grief fades into numbness. Generations forget your face. Your descendants may not even know you existed. Legacy is the illusion that death can be outwitted, but the truth is cold and absolute. The moment you exhale your last breath, the countdown begins. You will not be remembered. Only the dust remains, and the wind never waits. Love cannot survive. Entropy, we call love eternal. We write poems about its immortality, swear oaths in its name, believe it can transcend time, distance, even death. But love, like everything else, obeys entropy. It begins warm, radiant, defiant, and then, slowly, it cools. Not always in drama, not always in betrayal, but inevitably in the quiet erosion of closeness. The decay is subtle. Glances, once electric, become familiar. Words, once sacred, become routine, and touch becomes memory. Entropy doesn't strike love like a hammer. It seeps in like fog, unnoticed at first. It's in the unspoken resentment that grows when needs shift, in the tired apologies repeated until they lose meaning, in the way routines calcify what once felt alive. Even the most passionate love stories are timelines, moments rising, burning, then cooling into nostalgia, or worse, regret. Biology betrays us. The chemicals that bond us, dopamine, oxytocin, don't last forever. The mind that once idealized a partner begins to see the cracks, then fixates on them. The body, once aflame with longing, settles into silence. Time doesn't stop for love, and neither does the slow unraveling of energy, the inevitable diffusion that entropy demands. Even in death, we imagine love lingers, but that's memory, not love, and memory, too, fades. One day, no one will remember your names, no one will know your story. The laughter, the kisses, the whispered confessions, they will disappear, atom by atom, until even the echo is gone. Love feels like resistance to the void, but in the end, even love bends to physics, and the void always wins. Death is the most reliable truth. Everything lies, hope lies, religion lies, even your senses deceive you, but death never does. It waits in silence, patient and impartial, untouched by belief or denial. You can ignore it, distract yourself with love, ambition, entertainment, but it is there. It has always been there. From the moment you took your first breath, it began its approach. Quiet, certain, absolute. You live in a world built on illusions of permanence. You tell yourself there's time. You make plans, chase dreams, cling to people, thinking it all builds towards something lasting. But death doesn't care about your timing. It does not flinch for love, nor hesitate for greatness. It ends kings and infants the same way, with stillness. There is no scale, no mercy, no delay, only the closing of the curtain, whether you're ready or not. This is the one promise existence keeps, not love, not happiness, not justice, only death. It does not cheat, and it never forgets. Every breath is a countdown. Every heartbeat is a drumbeat toward the inevitable. And what waits beyond? Silence. No guarantees, no answers, just a void wrapped in speculation and fear. People surround themselves with distractions to drown it out. Faith, success, ritual. But underneath, everyone knows. Death is the mirror no one wants to look into because it reflects the one truth we cannot outthink, outwork, or outrun. You may not know what your life means. You may not know what love is, but you will know death. Whether you accept it or not, it is the only thing that will never abandon you. The universe is indifferent to your suffering. When the pain hits, when your chest tightens, when your heart breaks, when you fall to your knees and whisper, "Why?" into the dark, you expect something, a sign, a whisper, a reason, but nothing answers because the universe doesn't hear you. It never did. It wasn't built to care. You are made of atoms forged in stars that exploded long before humans had language. You are walking dust. Your suffering, though it feels unbearable, is microscopic on a cosmic scale. The stars don't dim when you cry. The oceans don't pause when you scream. Galaxies spiral elegantly through space while your world shatters, and they do so without noticing. This is the unbearable truth. Your pain is not special, not sacred, not recorded in some celestial book. The universe does not track your tears or weigh your grief against your goodness. It does not punish. It does not reward. It simply is, vast, cold, silent. And yet, we keep pretending there's a grand order, that suffering is part of some divine lesson plan. But children still die. Good people get sick. Love is torn apart without explanation. We call it unfair because we want fairness to exist. We want the universe to care. But it doesn't. That silence you hear in your darkest moments, that's not cruelty, that's apathy. And maybe that's worse, because there's no villain to fight, no God to curse, no reason to hold on to, just a quiet, endless void in which your agony is neither seen nor soothed. It simply disappears, like everything else. Morality is a human invention. We speak of good and evil like they are stars fixed in the sky, eternal, unquestionable, divine. But the stars don't care. The universe does not reward virtue or punish cruelty. It simply exists. Morality, for all its sacred weight, is not woven into the fabric of reality. It is not discovered. It is made, crafted by frightened minds desperate to make sense of chaos, to bring order to a world that never asked for it. Strip away the rituals, the laws, the commandments carved in stone, and what remains? Biology, survival, impulse. Morality is a system we've layered atop the animal core, hoping to separate ourselves from the beasts, but the line is thin, and it trembles. What one culture calls justice, another calls atrocity. What one century punishes, another glorifies. The definitions shift with power, with time, with fear, and when society collapses, when law disappears, so does morality. We see it in war zones, in famines, in forgotten prisons. Morality only lives where it is allowed to breathe. In truth, it is a story we whisper to ourselves at night, to feel righteous, to feel safe. But the void doesn't care how noble you were. The stars won't shine brighter because you were kind, and evil does not tremble in the face of your ethics. It thrives beneath them. The raw world beneath morality is chaos, indifferent, cold, and yet we cling to our invented codes like life rafts, pretending they came from gods, pretending they will save us, but they won't. They never have. Morality is not truth. It's just a beautifully painted mask, one we wear to hide the terrifying face of nothingness. Suffering has no deeper meaning. We ache to believe that our suffering means something, that pain purifies, that loss teaches, that every tear shed is part of some cosmic lesson, some sacred unfolding of who we are meant to become. We cling to this belief because the alternative is unbearable, that the agony we endure is hollow, random, unjustified. But nihilism rips the veil away and exposes the truth. Suffering has no deeper meaning. It just is. The child who dies before they speak, the mother crushed by grief, the soldier screaming into mud. What lesson did they learn? What divine wisdom was gained in those final, gasping moments of despair? None. Pain is not a teacher. It is not a doorway. It is a malfunction of nerves, a rupture of trust, a silence where answers should be but never are. We dress up our agony in mythology, karma, growth, divine trials, but these are just coping mechanisms. Pain isn't a staircase to transcendence. It's a pit. People die in it, broken and unheard. It does not shape you unless you survive it, and even then, survival is not transformation. It's luck or numbness or bitter endurance mistaken for strength. The universe does not reward you for your suffering. It does not tally your wounds and offer redemption. Most pain is unnoticed, unrecorded, unfelt by anyone but the one drowning in it. It leaves no monument, no moral, no message. And when it's over, nothing is improved, nothing is revealed. You are simply left to hold the shards, whispering into the silence, why, and hearing nothing in return. Hope is a cruel joke with no punchline. Hope is the shimmering illusion you reach for when everything is burning. It promises salvation, purpose, healing. It whispers, hold on, something better is coming. And you do. You wait, you suffer, you bleed, you survive. Because hope told you there's meaning in the suffering, that there's light at the end. But the light is a mirage. The tunnel has no end. Hope doesn't lead you anywhere. It just keeps you walking in circles, smiling through your despair. It's the soft lie that keeps you obedient, that tells you things happen for a reason, that one day the pain will make sense. But the universe is indifferent. There is no script, no resolution, just random noise dressed in patterns that make us feel safer. We are conditioned to hope because hopelessness terrifies us, because staring into the void and accepting its all chaos is more than most minds can bear. So we swallow hope like a drug, even when we know it's not real. Hope breaks you gently. It doesn't shatter you in a single blow. It erodes you over time. It keeps you waiting for apologies that never come, for people who never change, for justice that never arrives. It teaches you to postpone reality, to sit still in pain just a little longer because maybe, just maybe, it will all be worth it. But there's no punchline, no twist ending, just the growing silence of a truth you were never meant to hear. Hope doesn't save you. It only prolongs your suffering in prettier packaging, and when it dies, it takes whatever was left of your innocence with it. Progress is a myth told by dying empires. We are taught to believe in progress as if it's sacred, that humanity is moving forward, upward, toward enlightenment, toward peace, toward some glorious final state where suffering has been conquered and truth reigns. But history doesn't support that story. Progress is not a straight line. It is a spiral of delusion, violence, and decay. Every so-called advancement is built on the bones of what came before, and every golden age is the gleam of a candle before the blackout. Empires chant the myth of progress, the loudest when they're dying. They show you technology and call it transcendence. They show you wealth and call it wisdom. They stack their failures beneath monuments and cover blood with flags. But the truth remains. Every empire collapses. Every utopia turns dystopian. Every peak is a precipice, and what lies on the other side is ruin. We invent new tools, but the same hatred persists. We write new laws, but power still corrupts. We build towers of steel instead of stone, but they fall just as hard. The myth of progress comforts those who fear meaninglessness. It promises that things will get better, that sacrifices matter, that we are not just repeating the same horrors in prettier packaging. But look closer. The systems rot from within. The heroes wear masks. The institutions lie to survive. Beneath all the speeches and slogans, it's still just control, still just survival. And when it all crumbles, as it always does, they'll say we learned something, that we're better now. They'll call the ruins evolution, but it's not evolution, it's erosion, and the myth lives on. You were not asked to exist. There was no invitation, no whisper in the dark asking for your consent. You were not chosen. You were not summoned with care or intention. You were thrown, screaming and fragile, into a world already spinning, already breaking, already burning. Existence didn't knock. It burst in, and now you are here, expected to make sense of a life you never agreed to live. From the first breath, the wait begins. Expectations, rules, pain, longing. You're told to be grateful, to be strong, to find purpose. But beneath the noise is a quiet truth that shatters. You never asked for any of this. Not the body that aches, not the mind that breaks, not the suffering carved into your days like scripture. You inherited it all, without warning, without reason. Some try to paint this as a gift. They wrap it in poetry and religion and love songs. But look closer, and you'll see the cracks. How easily life turns cruel. How often the innocent are crushed. How the world spins on, deaf to prayers and screams. No manual, no mercy, just you, stumbling through a maze you didn't build, searching for meaning in a place that offers none. And the most terrifying part? No one is coming to explain. No cosmic figure will appear to tell you why. The silence is not waiting to be filled. It is the answer. You were not asked to exist. You were forced into a game with no rules, no goal, and no exit until the end swallows you whole. And still, you're expected to smile. Truth is just consensus until forgotten. We worship truth as if it were sacred, unchanging, pure, eternal. But the truth is far more fragile than we admit. It is not carved into the bones of the universe. It is spoken, agreed upon, repeated, and held together by the trembling threads of human memory. Strip away the illusions, and you'll see. Truth is not absolute. It is consensus, and consensus can die. What is accepted as truth today was heresy 100 years ago. What is labeled fiction now may be gospel to generations yet unborn. We think of facts as solid ground, but they are just words balanced on the shifting sands of culture, politics, and power. The victors write the histories, the loudest voices define the narrative, and the quiet truths are buried beneath forgotten tongues and unmarked graves. Even science, puros, the purest pursuit of objective reality, is filtered through human fallibility, limited data, flawed interpretation, corrupted institutions. And beyond science, truth becomes even more brittle. Stories change with the teller. Justice changes with the regime. The truth of your life, your beliefs, your identity, they are only as lasting as the memory of those who remember you. And memory is a dying star. When the last person forgets, your truth dies too. It doesn't matter what you believed, what you proved, what you screamed into the void. If no one carries it forward, it vanishes, and the next consensus will rise in its place, wearing a new face, rewriting the past like the old one never existed. Truth is not eternal, it's borrowed, and every borrower forgets. Justice is temporary convenience. We are told that justice is a cornerstone of civilization, that it is blind, noble, eternal. But justice is none of these things. It is not truth, it is not balance, it is a fleeting agreement between the powerful and the frightened, a makeshift scaffold built in the chaos to convince us that fairness exists. But behind the courtroom walls and moral declarations lies a darker reality. Justice is convenience wrapped in ceremony. It bends with politics. It bows to money. It changes shape depending on who holds the gavel and who signs the checks. What is punished in one era is praised in another. What is condemned in one country is celebrated across a border. The same crime, the same pain, receives mercy or wrath, depending on timing, location, or usefulness. There is no universal scale, no divine equilibrium, just shifting tides of power pretending to be principle. Sometimes justice is granted, not because it's right, but because it's easy. A scapegoat is sacrificed, a case is closed, a name is cleared, not for truth, but for optics, for stability, for silence. And when it's no longer convenient, justice disappears. The guilty walk free, the innocent rot. Victims scream into empty halls while perpetrators die peacefully in warm beds. Even when justice is served, it cannot undo what was done. It cannot unkill the dead. It cannot restore what was shattered. It simply gestures politely toward closure and expects you to move on. Justice is not sacred. It is fragile, conditional, a tool dressed as a god. And when the winds change, it vanishes without apology, leaving only those still waiting, still begging to be heard. You are a blip between infinite voids. Before you were born, there was nothing, not sleep, not silence, just non-existence, an endless stretch of void where you didn't even have the absence of thought, no waiting, no awareness, no name. Then, by accident or cruel coincidence, you appeared, a flicker, a breath, a brief pulse of life in a cosmos that neither needed you nor noticed you arrive. You burn through your days trying to build something, meaning, purpose, connection. You convince yourself this matters, that your presence disrupts the silence, that your choices, your memories, your name will ripple outward. But deep down, you feel the truth scratching at the edges of your awareness. You're temporary, a momentary anomaly, a spark in a storm. Time before you is infinite. Time after you is infinite. Your life, these few decades, is not even a grain of sand against that scale. You are not carved into time. You are suspended in it, weightless and vanishing. One breath in, one breath out, and you're gone again. The universe neither welcomes you nor mourns your departure. It simply continues, unchanged, undisturbed. And for all your desperate clinging, for the photos, the stories, the achievements, the names etched in stone. You are still that, a blip. Your thoughts will scatter, your body will return to dust. Eventually, even your atoms will drift apart into the cold. Nothing will remain to prove you were here. No trace, no echo. You came from nothing. You return to nothing. And in between, you live with the illusion that the void isn't watching, waiting to reclaim you. Dreams die quietly, like old stars. Dreams don't shatter with screams or spectacle. They don't explode in fire or fury. They die the way stars do, silently, invisibly, in places no one can see. A flicker fades, a warmth vanishes, and you don't even realize it until the cold sets in. There is no final moment, no grand announcement, just the slow erosion of hope buried beneath routine, disappointment, and the soft, relentless drag of time. You dream as a child, wildly, fearlessly, because you believe the world is listening. You dream because they tell you to, because they promise it's what gives life meaning. But the world doesn't care about your longing. It doesn't bend to your wishes. It only waits. And as you grow, it takes pieces of your dream, little by little, until you stop noticing they're missing. You make compromises. You take the safer path. You settle, telling yourself it's temporary. But months become years, and your dream, once vibrant and burning, becomes a dim memory you don't visit anymore. You stop speaking of it. You laugh at it. You call it naive so the ache doesn't show. But somewhere inside, something goes quiet. A star that once lit your inner sky burns out, unnoticed. No one mourns dead dreams. There's no funeral, no closure, just the hollow realization that what once gave your life direction is now gone, and it didn't even leave a mark. And like a star whose light takes years to reach us, you might still shine on the outside, long after everything inside you has already gone dark. There is no reward for good behavior. You were taught that goodness is currency, that kindness earns protection, that honesty brings favor, that if you play by the rules, smile politely, suffer quietly, help others, do the right thing, life will reward you. But the world is not a ledger, and it does not balance accounts. There is no cosmic judge tallying your virtues, no divine hand placing gold stars in the margins of your pain. You can give everything and still be broken. You can love purely and still be left behind. Goodness is not armor. It does not shield you from betrayal, illness, loneliness, or loss. People are not always kind to the kind. Life is not fair to the fair. You may spend a lifetime serving others and die unheard, unseen, unmourned. And worse, those who lie, cheat, and harm may rise higher, smile wider, and sleep more soundly than you ever will. The world often rewards cruelty, not compassion, ambition, not integrity. And this is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. Still, we cling to the idea of reward. It keeps us sane. It gives us a reason to be good when the night is long and the world feels cruel. But beneath that hope is a truth most cannot bear. Being good does not mean being safe. Doing right does not mean being spared. The universe is indifferent to your sacrifices. There is no prize waiting at the end of suffering, no crown for enduring quietly, no absolution earned through love alone. Sometimes the good die young, sometimes they die forgotten, sometimes they just die, and that's it. The abyss doesn't blink. When you look into the abyss, hoping it will flinch, recoil, show mercy, you will find only stillness, cold, infinite, unchanging. The abyss doesn't blink. It doesn't waver beneath your pain or react to your trembling. It watches with nothingness, and that is its power. Not malice, not cruelty, just the horrifying indifference of something that cannot care, will not care, and never did. We like to think our suffering earns attention, that when we cry out, the universe should notice, that our agony is so loud, so raw, it must shake something beyond us. But the abyss is silence incarnate. You could scream for 1,000 years, and it would remain motionless, unmoved. It doesn't blink because it has no eyes, no face, no soul to reflect your struggle. It's just there, watching nothing, being nothing. And what's worse, when you stare into it, it stares back, not with judgment, but with reflection. You begin to see yourself, stripped of illusion. You see how alone you are, how your fears echo into endless dark and return unanswered. You see the truths you've buried under hope and ritual, exposed under a gaze that doesn't look away because it never looked in the first place. People crack under that gaze because once you realize there is no one watching, no one listening, no one coming, you are left to face the terrifying fact that the abyss is not out there. It's inside you, quiet, patient, unblinking, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. Belief is placebo. We clutch belief like a lifeline. Faith in gods, in justice, in love, in the promise that something lies beyond the suffering. We dress it up in rituals, in creeds, in sacred texts. We anchor ourselves to it when the chaos grows too loud. But belief is not truth. Belief is a balm, a chemical trick, a placebo for the soul trembling in the face of meaninglessness. It works, yes, but only because you want it to. Like a sugar pill swallowed in desperation, belief convinces the mind that the pain will pass, that someone is listening, that all of this somehow matters. It's a story we tell ourselves when the silence becomes too loud, a whispered lie to shield us from the abyss. Belief can make you stronger. It can move nations, heal trauma, save lives. But its power lies not in its reality, only in your willingness to surrender to it. That's why beliefs contradict and still thrive. Why millions hold opposing truths with equal fervor. They aren't reaching for facts. They're reaching for comfort. They're trying to quiet the scream that says, there's nothing here. And like all placebos, belief can become a trap. You grow dependent. You defend it with violence. You kneel before it and mistake the warmth of illusion for proof. But the world doesn't bend to belief. The cancer still grows. The bullet still hits. The grave still opens. When belief wears off, when the veil thins, the void remains unchanged, untouched, and you're left with nothing but the bitter taste of hope, once sweet, now hollow. Belief is not salvation. It's anesthesia, temporary, fragile, false. God is an unanswered scream. When the pain becomes unbearable, when the silence grows too loud, when the darkness presses so close it feels like it's inside your lungs, what do? You scream into the sky, into the void, into your pillow, your prayers, your blood-soaked moments of desperation. You scream for help, for justice, for reason. And what answers you? Nothing, not even an echo, just the sound of your own voice, swallowed by a silence so vast it mocks you. This is where God lives, they say, in the stillness, in the faith, in the surrender. But faith is just fear dressed in hope, and surrender, that's just another word for giving up. The scream, though, that's real. It's raw. It's the only honest thing left when every lie you've been fed about purpose, about love, about divine order finally breaks under the weight of reality. They tell you God listens, but to whom? The mother begging for her child's life, the soldier praying not to die, the girl praying not to be touched again. If God listens, he's a coward. If he doesn't, he never existed. Either way, the scream remains unanswered, and that's all God is now, a shape made of your pain, carved from your suffering, built not from miracles, but from everything that never came. People find comfort in believing there's someone listening, but if you strip away the illusions, what you're left with is the scream itself, raw, eternal, bouncing off nothing. God is not a being. God is that last trembling cry when you realize no one's coming, and no one ever was. The cosmos is mute to prayer. In your darkest moments, you may whisper to the sky. You may beg, plead, scream with a voice soaked in desperation, hoping that something, anything is listening, that the pain means something, that the silence will break, but it never does. Not truly. The stars do not blink in answer. The wind does not shift with compassion. The cosmos, vast and eternal, does not hear you. It never did. It never did. It never will. Prayer is an echo you cast into a void that cannot echo back. It is a ritual carved from hope, passed down through generations of trembling minds, desperate for meaning in a world built of chaos. And yet, billions kneel, fold hands, close eyes, and offer their deepest fears and dreams to something that has never responded, because the alternative, that there is no reply, is too terrifying to accept. But look closely, and the truth is written into the stars themselves. Suns burn without conscience, black holes swallow without pause, planets collide without warning. This is not a creation shaped by love. It is beautiful, yes, majestic, but cold, indifferent, brutal. It does not grieve for the dead. It does not rejoice in births. It does not weigh your morality or cherish your tears. And when your prayer goes unanswered, as it often does, the silence is not a test. It is not a lesson. It is not divine restraint. It is the natural state of a universe that has never needed gods. Prayer may soothe the soul, but it does not reach the stars. You cry out, and the void listens with deaf ears. You are not ignored. You are simply unheard. History is just rot, wearing medals. They call it history, this grand parade of heroes and victories, dates etched into textbooks, names immortalized in marble. But look closer and you'll see the cracks bleeding through the gold. What we call history is decay wearing a costume. It is rot dressed in medals, a corpse made to dance under the illusion of glory. Behind every statue is a shadow. Behind every anthem, a scream. History isn't a record of what happened. It's a story told by those who won, those who killed louder, those who silenced the others first. It's a lie agreed upon, cleaned of blood, rewritten by trembling hands desperate to believe the horrors were worth it. It's genocide renamed conquest. It's betrayal rebranded as strategy. It's cruelty sanitized and handed to children as pride. We honor the uniforms, the speeches, the borders drawn in other people's blood, but we forget the screams behind the silence, the families swallowed by famine, the bones buried beneath our monuments. Every celebration echoes with things deliberately left out. History remembers names, not lives. It remembers declarations, not the ash they were written in. And worst of all, we worship it. We wear it like armor. We raise its banners and chant its songs, never questioning what had to rot so we could pretend it all meant something. We are heirs to slaughter, pretending we are kings. We stand on ruins and call it foundation. But history is not wisdom, it is aftermath. And the medals, they only shine because the rot beneath is hidden. For now, art decays, beauty ends in silence. We create to defy the void. We paint, write, sculpt, sing, desperate to capture something eternal, to preserve the fleeting gasp of feeling before it slips away. We call it beauty, and we cradle it like it's sacred. But beauty dies. Art rots. Time does not honor the delicate. It corrodes even the masterpieces. And when the silence comes, it swallows everything. Canvas, color, sound, meaning. The greatest symphonies were once played in halls, now reduced to dust. The most haunting paintings crack, fade, or vanish in fire and flood. Words that once stirred revolutions are forgotten languages, their brilliance locked in books no one reads, or lost entirely to decay. Nothing we create escapes the slow, merciless erosion of time. The museum is not a sanctuary, it's a mausoleum. You can feel it even now, can't you? How something beautiful slips away the moment you try to hold it. That song you once cried to, you don't feel it like you used to. The painting that once haunted you, just colors now. Beauty is not preserved, it fades, not because it's weak, but because it was never meant to last. It flickers, then silence, And in that silence lies the truth. Art is not immortal. It is an echo, a gasp, a moment of defiance carved into a world that forgets everything. Even the greatest creation will one day be buried in dust, seen by no eyes, heard by no ears. There is no eternal gallery, no divine preservation. Beauty ends not in applause, but in a silence so total it forgets the music ever played. Pain doesn't teach, it simply is. We are told pain has meaning, that it builds character, reveals truth, carves wisdom into the soul, that if we endure it long enough, it will shape us into something better. But that is a lie whispered by those desperate to justify the suffering they couldn't avoid. The truth is far colder. Pain doesn't teach. It does not guide or elevate. It does not come bearing lessons. It simply is. Pain is the most honest force in existence. It arrives without reason, without fairness, without mercy. A child dies, a body breaks, a mind collapses under weight it never asked to carry. There is no balance, no hidden message, no spiritual payoff. The pain does not arrive because you need it. It does not leave you stronger. It often just leaves you numb. Some endure agony and emerge kinder. Others become cruel, distant, broken. Pain doesn't shape you. It fractures you. And whatever falls from those cracks isn't wisdom. It's just the version of you that survived. Nothing more. If pain were a teacher, it would teach with intention. It would arrive with clarity. But pain is blind. It lashes out at the innocent, strikes the weak, lingers in the kind. It does not care who you are or what you've done. It just happens. And when it ends, there is no diploma, no reward, only the echo of what it took from you, the scar it left behind, the part of you it silenced. Pain is not your mentor. It is not your redemption arc. It is the cruel reminder that the universe is indifferent and you are terribly, achingly alive. You are replaceable. You want to believe you're singular, that your presence is a spark no one else can replicate, that in your absence the world would stumble, people would ache, systems would stall, silence would scream your name. But the truth is colder. You are replaceable, not just in work, in love, in friendships, but in identity, in existence. There is nothing you do that someone else cannot learn, mimic, or inherit. Your face will fade, your voice will be forgotten, and the roles you played will be refilled like a seat in a crowded theater. You could vanish tomorrow, and the earth would not pause. The sun would rise, deadlines would still be met. Laughter would still echo through rooms you used to occupy. Even those who mourn you will eventually fold back into the rhythm of life. Their pain, sharp and raw at first, will dull. They will adapt, and your name will be spoken less until it's spoken no more. This isn't cruelty, it's indifference. A world too large to grieve one person for long. The machine keeps moving because it must. You may be told you're special, irreplaceable, essential, but those are words we give to one another out of love, not truth. They're meant to comfort, not reflect reality. And when you truly grasp this, a shadow forms behind every compliment, every embrace, every "I need you," because you know the unspoken ending until someone else comes along. In the eyes of the world, you are a placeholder, and placeholders, by design, are meant to be replaced. Freedom is fiction under entropy. We are born into the illusion of choice, told we are free, that we control our destiny, that our will can shape the world. But freedom, real freedom, is a myth that doesn't survive under the slow, grinding teeth of entropy. You are not free when every breath is borrowed, when every decision decays, when time gnaws at the very structure of who you are. Under entropy, everything falls, even liberty. You can build empires, break chains, raise flags in the name of revolution. And still, entropy waits. Systems collapse. Bodies weaken. Minds fade. Every act of rebellion, every cry of independence dissolves under the weight of inevitable breakdown. Freedom isn't eternal. It's momentary, delicate, and constantly eroding. Even your thoughts, the sacred ground where you believe your freedom lives, are shaped by 1,000 forces you never chose. Trauma, genetics, upbringing, chemical imbalances, the words you use, the beliefs you hold, the instincts you follow, all programmed by systems far older than you. Your will is not sovereign, it's reactive, it's survival dressed in self-deception, and entropy is patient. It doesn't need to fight you, it just waits for the noise to slow, for your resistance to tire. Over time, all energy becomes disorder, and in disorder, freedom suffocates. The structure needed for choice disintegrates, leaving you with chaos and decline. You are free only as long as the decay allows, and the decay never stops. So sing of freedom, shout it if you must, but understand, you are screaming into a system that never needed chains to bind you. It only needed time. Consciousness is a chemical glitch. You believe you are real, that behind your eyes lives something more than matter, an essence, a soul, a self. You feel pain, joy, fear. You love, you dream, you tell yourself it must mean something. But the truth is colder than fiction dares to be. Your consciousness is not divine. It is not chosen. It is not special. It is a biological accident, a chemical glitch in a universe that doesn't care to notice. Your awareness, the voice narrating your thoughts, the illusion of choice, the sense of I, is the byproduct of neurons firing in a meat shell, a fluke in the chaos of evolution, not designed, not destined, just the unexpected side effect of complexity. Your memories, your emotions, your identity itself, they are electric patterns in soft tissue, as easily disrupted as they were formed. A head injury, a chemical imbalance, a moment of trauma, and the you cling to dissolves without a trace. And yet, despite this fragility, we build entire worlds upon it. Morality, art, religion, purpose, as if something born from randomness could ever hold eternal meaning. Consciousness is a mask worn by cells, pretending to be someone, and when those cells die, the mask drops. There is no backup, no soul floating upward, no light at the end, just the lights turning off. The glitch ends, and with it, everything you thought was you. There's no one watching, no one waiting. Your awareness is a temporary flicker in an unblinking void. It was never meant to last, and it never will again. There's no final judgment, only decay. We cling to the idea of judgment because we need to believe that someone, somewhere, is keeping track, that the wicked will pay, that the virtuous will be seen, that every sacrifice, every heartbreak, every unspoken act of goodness is being tallied in some grand celestial ledger. But there is no throne in the sky, no scales weighing sins and virtues, no voice declaring your worth when the lights go out. There is only decay. Your bones will not be asked for their story. Your name will not be spoken in any divine court. The crimes committed against you will not be avenged in fire or light. There is no reckoning, no righteous gavel to strike. Only the slow, humiliating collapse of everything you are, mind, body, memory, into rot, ash, and dust. This is not punishment. It's not salvation. It's just what comes next, always. We imagine judgment because we are terrified of indifference. The thought that the rapist and the poet meet the same end, buried in the same soil, eaten by the same worms, it breaks something in us. But that's the truth. The cosmos is not a courtroom. It is a graveyard, and in it, saints decay beside monsters, their stories fading just as fast. No redemption, no damnation, just the silence after the scream, just the return to the earth, to be forgotten by it. You will not be judged, you will be consumed, and in the grand theater of existence, that's the final act. Not justice, not vengeance, only the slow, unceremonious rot of all you ever were. All monuments become ruins we build with arrogance, towers that claw at the sky, statues that defy time, cathedrals meant to reach the divine. We carve ideals into stone, cast them in bronze, surround them with reverence and light. Monuments are humanity's attempt at permanence, testaments to power, belief, beauty, victory. But stone cracks, metal rusts, ideals rot, and time, relentless and patient, pulls every monument to its knees. Look at history. Once glorious temples now lie buried beneath ash and vine. Thrones rust beneath overgrown palaces. Cities that were once the beating hearts of empires are now haunted ruins where weeds bloom through broken marble. The names engraved in pillars fade. The meaning behind the symbols becomes distorted, misinterpreted, forgotten. And in time, even the ruins will vanish. Erosion doesn't care for legacy. You may walk through a ruin and feel awe, but it's not awe of survival. It's awe of decay, a reminder that even the mightiest hands fall still, that even the gods we sculpted crumble beneath the same sky that once watched them rise. And what we now call ruins were once built with the same confidence you carry now, the belief that this finally would last forever. But nothing lasts, not marble, not memory, not meaning. Every monument is a countdown in disguise. The moment it's finished, it begins to fall, and when the last stone collapses into earth, the world does not mourn. It forgets, because all monuments become ruins, and all ruins become dust. The end comes, whether or not you're ready. You tell yourself there will be time to make amends, time to chase the dream, time to finally become who you swore you'd be. But time is a liar. It gives no guarantees, no warnings, no mercy. The end doesn't wait for closure. It doesn't pause for forgiveness or second chances. It comes, abrupt, indifferent, and absolute, no matter how tightly you cling to the moments before it. You imagine the end as a distant thing, far past the plans you've made and the years you think you deserve, but death doesn't follow your calendar. The collapse, the diagnosis, the silence at the other end of the phone, it can arrive mid-sentence, in the middle of joy, in the middle of nothing. One moment you are, and the next you are a story someone else struggles to tell. And it's not just your death. Friendships end without goodbyes. Lovers leave while you're still learning how to hold them. Whole lives change with a single word, a single mistake, a single breath that never comes again. And every time you're caught unprepared, as if life owed you a heads up. But it doesn't. It never did. The end is not dramatic. It's not poetic. It's not fair. It just is. Sudden, silent, final. And it doesn't care if you're still healing, still hoping, still holding on. It will arrive like a closing door, like a breath that never finishes. You can pray, you can run, you can scream, but when it comes, you will face it with whatever you were holding in that final second, ready or not. The void has no opinion. We scream into the dark, expecting something to answer, a god, a sign, a shift in the wind, anything to suggest that someone or something is listening, that our struggles mean something, that justice and cruelty, love and hate are noticed, weighed, and returned in kind. But the void does not listen. The void does not care. It does not judge, does not bless, does not condemn. The void has no opinion. It is not watching. It does not whisper. It does not wait. It simply is, vast, silent, and completely indifferent. Your joy doesn't warm it. Your agony doesn't move it. You can cry until your throat bleeds, pray until your knees splinter, curse until your voice breaks. It will not flinch. The void isn't cruel. Cruelty requires intent. The void is worse than cruel. It is apathetic. And yet, we project onto it constantly. We beg it for signs, punish ourselves when it stays silent, pretend its emptiness is mystery rather than absence. We assign it purpose because we're terrified to admit the truth, that there is no greater gaze watching over us, no scale tipping based on our actions, no silent ledger of our pain. The void will not punish the wicked or reward the kind. It offers no comfort, no guidance. It does not care who suffers or survives. It swallows stars the same way it swallows children, without pause, without thought. It is the background noise of existence, stretching forever in every direction. And when you vanish into it, there will be no welcome, no memory, no verdict, only silence, forever. Dignity is ornamental delusion. Dignity is a costume we wear to make suffering look graceful. It's a performance, stitched together by pride and fear, designed to convince others and ourselves that we are in control, that we are composed, that we suffer nobly. But when the walls close in, when the body betrays, when the mind unravels, dignity reveals itself for what it truly is, a fragile ornament perched on the edge of collapse. They say, die with dignity, endure with dignity, lose everything but keep your head high. But why? What is this performance for? And who is still clapping when you're on your knees? Dignity does not stop the pain. It does not soften the blow. It only masks it in silence, demanding you suffer quietly so the world remains comfortable. It turns agony into theater. It makes humiliation palatable, especially for the spectators. When the body begins to rot from disease, when you're too weak to stand or speak or even remember your name, where does dignity go? When grief shatters your voice, when trauma makes your hands shake and your breath hitch, does dignity protect you then? No, it flees, because dignity is not real. It's an illusion we create to avoid confronting the full ugliness of human fragility. Even the powerful lose it. Monarchs crying in hospital beds, leaders begging for one more chance, legends forgotten in nursing homes, all stripped bare, all exposed. And when the end comes, no one escapes the truth. Dignity cannot follow you into decay. It stays behind, pristine and useless, while you vanish, unpolished, undignified, and finally, real. Heroes fade into footnotes. They tell you stories of heroes, men and women who stood against darkness, who bled for ideals, who changed the course of history. You're taught to admire them, to model your life after theirs, to believe that courage and sacrifice carve your name into the stone of time. But time is not loyal, and memory is a thief. Heroes, no matter how bright they burn, are swallowed by the same darkness they once defied. At first, they are praised, revered, held up as symbols. Statues are raised, songs are sung, pages filled with their triumphs. But generations pass, the details blur, the humanity fades, the stories become shorter, simpler, rewritten to serve someone else's agenda. What was once a life full of contradictions, doubts, pain, and passion becomes a paragraph, then a sentence, then a name. And eventually, not even that. Even the greatest are not immune. Their statues weather, their morals questioned, their deeds reframed. The very causes they died for are forgotten or reversed. What was once considered bravery may become controversy. What was once a fight for freedom may be recast as something shameful. The world rewrites its past to suit its present. And you, if you choose to stand, to fight, to give everything, you may be remembered, briefly, falsely, poorly, then forgotten, because the system doesn't preserve heroes. It consumes them, and once they've served their purpose, it moves on. All your glory, all your sacrifice, it will be trimmed into a footnote, filed beneath newer names, then lost in dust. Even legends fade, especially legends. Even the stars will die alone. We look to the stars for meaning, those eternal fires burning across black eternity, distant and ancient, shining long after we are gone. We call them immortal. We name them after gods, after heroes, after the myths we cling to in the dark. They seem untouchable, constant, but they are not. They are dying. Slowly, yes, quietly, but certainly. And they will die alone. Every star you see is a burning engine of solitude, suspended in the vacuum, light years from anything that could hold it, understand it, or save it. Its entire life is spent giving light, heat, gravity, until one day it cannot. Then comes collapse, or explosion, or the long fade into a cold cinder that drifts silently through space, a white dwarf, a neutron star, a black hole, a ghost where brilliance used to live. No one is there to witness their deaths, no mourners, no final rites. The light that once gave life to worlds now forgotten flickers out with no audience. The silence is unbroken. The universe does not pause. It only continues expanding, colder with every breath. And in the end, long after the last living thing takes its final breath, the stars too will have vanished, consumed by time, by entropy, by the weight of their own solitude. This is the truth we turn our faces from. Even the brightest lights fade. Even the giants of the cosmos die in isolation. And if even the stars, massive, ancient, divine in scale, cannot escape loneliness, what hope is there for you? You who burn so much faster, so much quieter, so much smaller, you'll be forgotten completely. It's not a question of if, it's only when. You will be forgotten entirely, absolutely, without exception. Every memory of your laughter, your voice, your thoughts, your pain, it will all vanish. First from the minds of those closest to you, then from the lineage you once believed would carry you forward. Eventually, not a trace of you will remain, not in photo albums, not in digital archives, not even in fading stories. Oblivion doesn't skip names, it consumes them all. We live like we matter. We document, we perform, we speak our names into the world, hoping someone, anyone, will remember us when we're gone. But memory is weak. Generations barely remember their great-grandparents, let alone the unknown thousands before them. Your legacy? If you're lucky, it becomes a dusty photo in a box no one opens. If you're honest, it doesn't even last that long. Think of all the people who have ever lived. Millions, billions, the lovers, the killers, the poets, the children. Where are their names now? Their fears, their dreams, all gone. Their stories were erased not by hate, but by time. And so will yours, because memory dies, because people move on, because the world keeps turning without asking who it leaves behind. One day, there will be no one left who remembers your face, your laugh, or the way you loved, not even as a name carved in stone, not even as a whisper, total erasure. And here's the cruelest part. The forgetting begins while you're still alive. Evil wins as often as good. We are raised on stories where good always triumphs, where the hero survives, the villain falls, and justice blooms in the ashes of chaos. But those are stories, comfortable lies wrapped in moral certainty. In reality, evil wins, and it wins often, sometimes boldly, in the open, and sometimes quietly, behind closed doors, dressed in tailored suits and polite smiles. It doesn't always wear a snarl. Sometimes it wears a crown. For every act of kindness, there is cruelty untouched. For every person who stands up, there are 10 who stay seated, watching the world burn with their hands folded. Goodness is not rewarded by the universe. It is tested, broken, and forgotten more often than not. And evil thrives in power, feeds on silence, and multiplies in systems built to protect it. It lies without consequence, steals without shame, kills without remorse, and sometimes it gets applause. We want to believe in karma, in cosmic balance, in the arc of justice bending toward light. But history bleeds with the victories of tyrants, with the smiles of abusers who die peacefully in their sleep, with the wealth of corrupt men passed down like heirlooms. The martyrs are buried, the monsters are memorialized. Sometimes good wins, but it fights uphill. It fights tired. It fights knowing it may never see the finish line. And even when it wins, it's often too late. The damage has already been done. The scars already formed. Evil doesn't need to be clever. It just needs to endure. And too often, it does, because the truth is, there is no universal force keeping score, only those left standing. Truth dies in translation. You may believe that truth is durable, that if you speak it clearly enough, if you write it down, if you scream it loud enough into the world, it will survive. But truth is not stone, it is smoke, and the moment it leaves your mouth, it begins to change. Pass from voice to voice, page to page, it is reshaped, not always with malice, but always with distortion. No matter how sacred the message, truth dies in translation. People do not hear what you say. They hear what fits. They filter it through their fears, their desires, their assumptions. Your truth is chewed by every tongue it touches, digested into something else entirely. Even when they try to be faithful, they fail, because words are blunt tools for infinite complexities, and memory is nothing but a shifting, biased witness. What you meant becomes what they understood, and what they understood becomes what is retold. Look at history, look at scripture, look at love letters. No matter the intent, the meaning bends. Empires have risen from misread lines. Wars have ignited over mistranslations. Families break from misunderstood sentences. You may pour your soul into a message, only for it to arrive mutilated at its destination, barely recognizable, weaponized, or mocked. And worst of all, over time, the original version disappears. The mistranslation becomes the truth. It is repeated, canonized, taught, and you, the source, are erased or reimagined into someone you never were. The truth you lived for becomes a story you wouldn't even recognize, because truth doesn't just fade, it is rewritten, and in the hands of others, it quietly dies. Loyalty is self-deception. We wrap loyalty in honor, drape it in virtue, and call it noble. We pledge it to causes, to flags, to people who promise meaning in exchange for obedience. But beneath its polished surface, loyalty is often nothing more than fear dressed in devotion, a desperate clinging to identity, belonging, or purpose when faced with a world too chaotic to face alone. And so we lie to ourselves, this is right, this is mine, this is worth everything, even when it's not. Loyalty asks you to stay when you should run, to believe when you know the truth is rotten, to bleed for people who wouldn't bandage you. It becomes a cage you defend as sanctuary. The longer you're loyal, the more you have to convince yourself it's still deserved. Because if it isn't, if your loyalty was misplaced, then what was the suffering for? The silence, the betrayal you swallowed to stay faithful. And here lies the cruelty. Loyalty isn't rewarded. It's expected. It's used. The world does not rise to protect the loyal. It consumes them, grinds them into tools, and replaces them the moment they break. And yet we persist, not out of strength, but out of fear. Fear that walking away will mean admitting we were wrong, that we wasted ourselves on people or ideas that never loved us back. So we stay. We call it principle, but it's survival in disguise. We're not loyal because they deserve it. We're loyal because we've lied to ourselves so long, we've forgotten how to leave. Loyalty is not love. It's a mask worn to avoid the shattering truth. You don't owe them anything, and they never owed you. Even nihilism is pointless. You turn to nihilism because the lies stopped working. Religion crumbled. Meaning felt plastic. Hope began to rot in your hands. So you reach for the cold comfort of nihilism, the idea that nothing matters, that life is without purpose, that the universe is empty and silent. It feels honest, it feels clean, a raw antidote to the saccharine illusions you were fed since childhood. But even this, the cold truth you think you've embraced, is not immune to the void, because nihilism too wants to mean something. It wants to offer a lens, a way of seeing clearly through the fog. It pretends to be different from belief, superior to illusion, but it still whispers, this is the truth, this is how it is, and that makes it just another story, another comfort dressed as cynicism. Nihilism tries to be the final word, but what is it offering you really? Certainty? Insight? Power? Those are just as hollow as the promises of faith. You can scream, "Nothing matters," into the abyss, but the abyss doesn't care, not about your despair and not about your clarity. Nihilism doesn't protect you. It doesn't liberate you. It doesn't do anything, because the realization that nothing matters doesn't stop the pain. It doesn't end longing. It doesn't erase the need to be held or known or real. Even nihilism is just noise, darker noise in the silence. And that's the cruelest irony. Even your rejection of meaning is swallowed by the same emptiness it tries to define. It ends where everything ends, in nothing. The scream inside you has no echo. There is a scream that lives in you. It doesn't come from your throat. It comes from deeper, from the part of you that aches without sound, that pleads without words. It builds in the quiet moments, in the nights you can't sleep, in the days where you pretend everything's fine. It is the sound of your fear, your loneliness, your desperation to be seen, to be understood, to matter, and it never leaves. But worse than that, it never echoes. You can cry out, silently or aloud, but nothing answers. Not the sky, not the people you love, not the universe that birthed you and will forget you. The scream bounces off nothing because there is nothing listening. No divine ear bent in compassion, no great heart attuned to your pain. Just vast silence, cold, impartial, unfeeling. The world spins whether you scream or not. And when you try to share it, to explain the chaos behind your eyes, the words come out wrong. People nod, but they don't hear it. They offer comfort, but not connection, because no one can hear your scream the way you feel it. It is uniquely yours, and it is trapped inside you like a prisoner pounding on soundproof glass. You carry it every day. It colors your joy. It warps your love. It bleeds into every quiet pause. And you begin to wonder, was it always like this? Was I born with this silence wrapped around my voice? The scream is not a cry for help. It's a reminder that no matter how loudly your soul howls, some pain is destined to stay unheard forever. Everything built is just future rubble. We build to matter, to endure. Towers, systems, beliefs, brick by brick, law by law, dream by dream. We pour our lifetimes into the creation of homes, cities, cultures, legacies. We surround ourselves with the illusion of permanence, thinking that if we build it high enough, strong enough, sacred enough, it will stand forever. But forever is a lie whispered to calm the fear, because everything built is just future rubble. The tallest buildings will fall. The greatest civilizations will rot beneath soil and moss. The homes we cherish, the walls we paint with memories and meaning, will one day be reduced to shattered concrete and splinters. Storms, fire, time, neglect, one way or another, the wrecking arrives. No structure outlasts entropy. No monument survives the earth's hunger. Even the invisible structures, your values, your systems of belief, your institutions, they too decay. What feels like unshakable truth today will be laughed at in a century. What feels revolutionary now will be discarded, rewritten, dismantled by those who come next. Human history is not a staircase of progress. It's a graveyard of fallen ideas, collapsed ideologies, and broken structures buried beneath the new. And you, your work, your effort, your masterpiece, no matter how noble, no matter how massive, it will crumble. Not because you failed, but because that is what everything does. There is no finish line immune to dust. There is no triumph that time will not undo. We build because we must, because it gives us something to hold in a void. But the void waits, and all things, great or small, eventually become rubble. No one is watching you move through life like there's a spotlight overhead, like someone, something is keeping score. You hesitate before you act, before you speak, before you break, because deep down you think you're being seen, judged, recorded, that there's a meaning behind the moments, that your choices ripple through some higher consciousness, divine or cosmic, that cares whether you do right or wrong. But the truth is colder and quieter. No one is watching. not the sky, not fate, not God. The eyes you feel are illusions, echoes of a childhood belief that someone out there cares enough to notice your suffering or your strength. But step outside at night, feel the vastness pressing down on your chest. The stars don't blink in approval. The wind doesn't whisper your name. The silence doesn't answer your prayers. The universe is not your witness. It is your stage, empty, unlit, and collapsing. And the people around you, they're too busy drowning in their own storms to truly see you. They forget. They misremember. They scroll past your life in fragments. You could vanish tomorrow, and most would keep scrolling, keep eating, keep breathing. It's not malice, it's inertia, the brutal rhythm of a world that does not pause. You are alone with your choices, with your pain, with your triumphs. The applause you crave isn't coming. The justice you wait for isn't on its way. You are your only witness, your only God, your only ghost. And once you accept that no one is watching, you're free. But freedom has never felt so hollow. Every truth is eroded by time. Truth feels eternal when it lives in your mouth. It feels sharp, unmovable, invincible, like a pillar nothing can topple. But time is patient. It doesn't shatter truth all at once. It wears it down, softly, quietly, slowly enough that no one notices until it's gone. Even the truths we swear by, the sacred ones, the scientific ones, the ones people die to defend, become questions, then myths, then silence. History is not a record of truth. It is a story rewritten by survivors. What once passed as fact becomes propaganda. What once liberated becomes forbidden. Truth in human hands is fragile. It bends to power. It cracks under fear. And eventually, time strips it bare. The old gods fall. The old laws crumble. The old certainties become absurdities, whispered in dark corners by those who still believe. Even the truths carved into stone, etched with care, guarded with blood, fade. The stone breaks. The language dies. The meaning gets lost in translation. 1,000 years from now, who will understand what mattered to you? Who will know the difference between your truth and your delusion? No one, because time doesn't care. It forgets even the most desperate voices, and worse, it replaces them. New truths rise like weeds over graves, declaring the past was wrong, foolish, dangerous, and maybe it was, or maybe not. But you won't be here to argue. Every truth you hold now will erode, then vanish, not because it was false, but because time doesn't preserve, it devours. All it leaves behind is dust and disagreement. Identity is fragile theater. You wear a mask, even when you swear you don't. Everyone does. Identity is not truth, it's performance, a delicate act tailored for each audience, each room, each expectation. You shift your voice, your posture, your opinions, sometimes so subtly you don't even notice. And with time, you begin to confuse the act for the self. But beneath it, behind the eyes and rehearsed smiles, there is no fixed truth, only echoes, only fragments. Who you are at work is not who you are with your lover. Who you are with friends is not who you are when alone, staring at your reflection, wondering if any of it is real. You think you know yourself until the world tilts, until grief, trauma, betrayal, or time strips away the stage. And what's left? Not a foundation, but a silence, a shaking uncertainty. You realize your identity wasn't discovered. It was assembled from fears, from hopes, from survival. We build our identities to be accepted, to feel belonging, but it comes at a cost. We shave off parts that don't fit. We suppress the contradictions. We lie to others, yes, but worse, we lie to ourselves. And the more convincing the performance, the more lost we become in it. One day you wake up and can't tell if the person others see is someone you created or someone you became out of necessity. Then something breaks. A job, a relationship, a dream, and the mask slips. And for a moment, you're exposed, not to others, but to yourself. and you see the terrifying truth. Identity isn't who you are, it's who you pretend to be long enough that forgetting feels safer than remembering. Innocence doesn't prevent annihilation. We're taught that innocence protects, that purity of heart, the absence of malice, the refusal to harm, somehow creates a shield, that if you are good, untouched, untainted, the universe will spare you. But the truth is a jagged, brutal thing. Innocence is not armor. It is not immunity. It is not sacred. The world does not pause for innocence. It devours it just the same. Children die in war zones. Animals suffer without reason. The kindest people fall to disease, to violence, to despair. They ask, why, as they're broken, and there is no answer, because annihilation does not discriminate. It does not ask if you meant well, if your heart was gentle, if your hands were clean. It strikes because it can, because in a universe ruled by chaos and indifference, destruction is the natural state, and innocence, for all its beauty, is helpless in its path. It may make the loss feel more tragic, more obscene, but it does not make it less likely. In fact, innocence often walks blindly toward annihilation, trusting where it shouldn't, forgiving what should not be forgiven. And the world, unfeeling and unflinching, meets it with the same cold hand it offers the guilty. There is no cosmic safety net for the pure of heart, no divine intervention that swoops down for those who deserve to be spared. The fire burns everything it touches, whether or not it understands what fire is. And perhaps the cruelest truth of all is this: sometimes it's the innocent who burn first. Even gods can be abandoned. We imagine gods as eternal, unchallenged, beloved, and feared. We build temples, write scriptures, paint ceilings with their faces. We kneel, we bleed, we pray, and yet across time, gods have died, not with thunder or fire, but with silence, with forgetfulness, with indifference. Even the divine is no match for a species that forgets what it once worshipped. Once, people wept at altars to gods whose names you no longer know. They offered children, spilled blood, carved monuments into mountains for voices they swore answered in the wind. Now, those gods are dust. Their idols are buried under cities, their stories lost in the mouths of bones, and the people who once lived and died for them, gone. Not in glory, just gone. Their gods died with them. Even gods, those cloaked in divinity, shrouded in awe, require belief to breathe. Without worship, they starve. Without memory, they vanish. A god is not immune to silence, and there is no crueler silence than the one that follows betrayal. When people realize their prayers go unanswered, when blood is spilled and no miracle comes, when the faithful suffer again and again and heaven looks away, that's when gods begin to wither, not in battle, but in doubt. This truth is the deepest heresy. Even gods are fragile. Even gods can be outgrown, replaced, left behind. And when they are, when their names are no longer whispered and their stories rot, they die quietly like forgotten kings, powerless, alone, unremembered, because belief isn't proof, and even gods are only real as long as someone needs them to be. You are not the exception. You tell yourself you're different, that somehow, in some small, sacred way, the rules don't fully apply to you, that you will be remembered, that your love is deeper, that your pain is more profound, that your thoughts have a weight others can't grasp. It's comforting to believe you're the one life will make room for, the one the void will spare, but you are not the exception. You are the rule pretending to be a story. You bleed like everyone else. You will die like everyone else. The world will not pause when you're gone. There will be no thunder, no final signal that something rare has been lost. The sky won't dim. The wind won't change. Someone will check their phone. Someone will laugh. Someone will forget you were ever there. Your ambitions are not immune to time. Your dreams do not come with armor. Your suffering is not unique enough to shift the ground beneath you. Every emotion you've ever felt has been felt before. Every thought you cherish as original is an echo. Even your rebellion is just a well-trodden path, worn by others who also believed they were singular. You will fade. You will be replaced. The people who love you will forget how your voice sounded. The lessons you learned the hard way will not protect those who come after. There is no exemption, no secret clause. You are not the first. You are not the last. You are not spared. And the sooner you realize it, the louder the silence becomes. Decay is the default. We're taught to believe in growth, in progress, in things getting better if we just try hard enough, believe long enough, endure patiently. But this is the exception, not the rule. The truth we're not meant to face is this: decay is the default. It is the baseline setting of existence. Everything breaks down, everything rots, everything fades. Given enough time, even the strongest structures collapse under their own weight. You don't need to do anything for decay to begin. You don't have to fail. You don't have to sin. You don't have to choose wrong. Time alone is enough. The body starts dying the moment it starts living. Teeth yellow, skin loosens, organs tire. The mind, once sharp, forgets. The heart grows quieter, not wiser, just weary. The dreams that once felt immortal gather dust, soften around the edges, and eventually disappear without mourning. Your relationships, they decay too. Distance, silence, miscommunication, these are not disruptions. They are entropy, natural and unrelenting. Cities decay, languages vanish, empires return to dirt, love fades, memories dissolve, and death is not the ultimate destroyer. It's just the final stage of a process that's been happening all along. Even the things you fight hardest to protect will wither in your hands, not because you're weak, but because everything collapses eventually. That is the law written in bone and stone and stardust. Decay doesn't punish. It doesn't choose. It simply happens, slowly, invisibly, then all at once. And the cruelest part? You'll spend most of your life trying to outrun it until one day you look around and realize it's already inside you. Purpose is a fairy tale for the anxious. From the moment you can ask why, the world begins to answer with lies wrapped in comfort. You're told you have a purpose, something unique, something divine, something that makes your suffering meaningful and your life significant. It's soothing. It gives shape to chaos, puts a leash on despair. But peel back the story and you'll find something hollow. Purpose is not truth. It is a fairy tale, whispered to those too anxious to face the silence. We crave meaning because the alternative is unbearable. The idea that we are just accidents of biology, flesh wrapped around neurons, spinning on a dying rock in an uncaring cosmos, makes the stomach clench and the soul recoil. So we invent purpose. We name it. We chase it. We inject it into careers, relationships, belief systems, quests for greatness. And when that doesn't work, we search harder, hoping the next chapter will unlock the reason we were born. But the universe never promised you a reason. There is no mission briefing buried in your DNA, no grand narrative with you at the center. Purpose is not discovered, it is assigned, and more often than not, it's assigned out of fear. Fear that if nothing matters, then everything hurts for nothing. So we build purpose like scaffolding around our dread, hoping it will hold. But deep down, most of us feel it unravel. In the quiet hours, in the failures, in the moments when the applause stops and no one's watching, purpose doesn't answer back. It doesn't soothe the void, because it was never real, just a story we told ourselves to keep from falling apart. The stars don't care what you wish. As children, we're taught to look up and make wishes, to send our quiet hopes into the sky like offerings to something greater. We whisper to falling stars as if they are listening, as if somewhere in the vastness, something hears and answers. It's beautiful, it's innocent, it's a lie. The stars don't care what you wish. They burn because they must. They shine without mercy, and they die without ever knowing you existed. Each star you see is a fire too distant to feel you, too ancient to notice your need. It does not blink for your heartbreak. It does not brighten for your dreams. It does not soften for your suffering. You could pour your soul into the night sky, scream your deepest longing into the wind, and still the stars would burn exactly the same, not kinder, not colder, just indifferent. And yet, we keep wishing, because we want to believe someone hears us, that pain means something if it's seen, that love matters if it's shared with the cosmos. But the stars were never gods. They were never guides. They are dying giants and collapsing light, fragments of chaos glowing across a black sea that has never spoken our name. So wish if you must. Pretend the sky leans in to listen. But know this, your wishes are not prayers. They are echoes, and the stars are not listening. They are burning and fading and forgetting everything you ever hoped for before the words even leave your mouth. Love cannot stop loss. We are taught that love is the antidote, that if we love deeply enough, hold tight enough, give everything, we can keep the darkness at bay, that love protects, preserves, saves, but it doesn't. Love does not stop time. It does not shield the body from decay. It does not hold back death. No matter how fiercely you love, you will lose. And the deeper the love, the deeper the cut. You can memorize someone's laugh, their warmth, the way they say your name, but you cannot keep them. The world takes everyone, eventually, sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly. And when it does, love doesn't hold the door shut. It just stands there, trembling as the silence rushes in. The hand you used to hold will grow cold. The eyes that once lit up for you will close and stay closed. You'll scream, beg, bargain, but love will do nothing but watch, helpless. And even when they're still alive, love cannot stop the quiet, creeping losses, the distance, the changes, the forgetting. People grow apart. They drift, they leave. Sometimes they look at you and no longer see you. And again, love stands powerless. It cannot undo betrayal. It cannot rewind time. It cannot make them stay. Love is beautiful, but it is not a shield. It is not a cure. It is not a god. It is a flame flickering in a storm that doesn't care how warm it once was. You can love with your entire soul, and still you will lose what you love every time, always. No cause is immune to corruption. Even the purest flame casts a shadow. Every cause, no matter how noble, no matter how righteous in its origin, carries within it the seed of rot. Because where people gather, especially in belief, in passion, in certainty, corruption finds a way in. It doesn't need violence. It doesn't need power. It just needs conviction unchallenged, a mission unquestioned, and the subtle belief that the end always justifies the means. Revolutions are born in hope and end in blood. Movements begin with the language of love and justice, only to grow teeth behind slogans and flags. The ones who scream for freedom build cages. The ones who fought for truth learn to silence dissent. And it never starts with evil. It starts with compromise, with a lie told for the greater good, with a rule bent to protect the message, with a voice silenced to maintain purity. Soon the cause becomes more important than the people, more sacred than the truth, and the ones who dare to question it, even from within, are cast out, labeled traitors, infidels, threats. What began as resistance becomes dogma. What began as healing becomes harm, and those who swore they'd never become the enemy start to resemble everything they once fought. This isn't rare. It's inevitable, because humans carry ego into everything they touch, even justice, even peace, especially righteousness. No cause is immune. The banners fade, the leaders fall, the chants become whispers of what was, and the corruption remains, a shadow draped in the colors of virtue, whispering that it's still the good fight, even as it poisons everything it once tried to save. Peace is a lull between collapses. We speak of peace like it's an arrival, a destination earned through suffering, a gentle plateau after the storm. But peace is not stable. It is not permanent. It is not the end. Peace is the breath between screams, the silence before the glass shatters again. It is a lull, deceptive, temporary, and already dying the moment it begins. History repeats this truth like a warning carved in blood. Every era of peace is merely a pause between disasters. Treaties are inked with trembling hands, even as new weapons are forged in the dark. Smiles stretch across political stages, while secrets fester underneath. Generations are born into calm, only to be buried beneath its collapse. The cycle never ends. Peace is not progress, it's intermission. And on a personal level, the story is the same. You finally feel okay, stable, whole, and then life cracks the ground beneath your feet. Illness, betrayal, grief, loss. Peace is not a reward for healing. It's the moment before the next wound. You cling to it, you cherish it, but you always feel it trembling beneath the surface. You know it won't last. It never does. We tell ourselves this time is different, that this quiet is real, that this love will hold, that this system will last. But the collapse is always waiting, slow and patient, just out of view. And when it comes, because it always comes, we remember. Peace is not a promise, it's a pause, a fragile, fleeting illusion before the next unraveling, the eye of a storm we never escape. Meaning is borrowed, then repossessed. We are not born with meaning. We inherit it, absorb it, cling to it like breath. It's given to us in fragments, from parents, teachers, religion, culture, love. We don't choose it. It wraps around us before we know what choice even is. We're told what matters. We're told what to chase, and we do, desperately, because without meaning, the void howls louder. But here's the truth most run from. All meaning is borrowed, and one day, without warning, it is taken back. You build your life around it. The idea that this relationship is sacred, that this career is your calling, that this belief is your anchor. But meaning doesn't belong to you. It isn't etched into the soul. It is stitched onto your skin by time, place, influence, fear. And when those things shift, and they always do, what once felt eternal becomes foreign, hollow, dead, a death, a betrayal, a change in the wind. That's all it takes to feel it slipping. And when it does, you realize you never owned it. It was on loan, and now it's gone. That dream you lived for? Meaningless now. That identity you fought to defend? Just a discarded chapter. Even love, yes, even love can be repossessed by time, by pain, by silence. And when that happens, you are left holding the shell, the shape of something that once meant everything, now emptied of weight. And you wonder if it ever mattered, if anything ever did, because meaning does not die loudly. It just walks out quietly, taking your reason for living with it. Creation guarantees destruction. Every act of creation is a ticking clock. The moment something is born, its death begins. The painting starts to fade. The structure starts to rot. The love begins to erode. We like to think of creation as triumph, over time, over entropy, over meaninglessness. But in truth, creation is merely the first step toward decay. To make anything is to promise its destruction. To build is to guarantee collapse. To love is to promise grief. Look around. Nothing escapes. Mountains are ground to dust. Oceans rise and swallow cities. Languages disappear. Stories once passed with reverence vanish into forgotten dialects. Even stars, massive, ancient, godlike stars, die. Some explode in violent brilliance. Others collapse into silent black holes. Nothing that exists stays. And the more beautiful, the more precious the creation, the more heartbreaking its fall. This isn't poetic. It's not metaphor. It's physics. It's entropy. It's the unstoppable unraveling of all things. You create a masterpiece, one day mold, fire, neglect, or indifference will take it. You build a family, time will scatter it. You write your truths into books, etch your values into stone. They will be lost, forgotten, broken down into the dirt of some future world that no longer remembers your name. We create to feel immortal, to scream into the void that we were here, but the void doesn't care, and it doesn't echo. Creation is noble, it is powerful, but it is not permanent. It is a candle lit in a storm, beautiful, fleeting, and doomed, because to bring anything into this world is to begin its end. Creation guarantees destruction, always. Faith blinds and consoles. Faith is the soft hand that reaches for you in the dark, and the blindfold it ties across your eyes. It comforts, yes. It holds you when the world breaks and the silence becomes unbearable. It offers answers where none exist, warmth where truth only offers cold. It promises meaning, direction, justice beyond the grave. But that comfort comes at a cost, because to be consoled by faith, you must first be willing not to see. It tells you someone is watching, that your pain is known, that your suffering matters in some cosmic way, and you believe because to believe is easier than to accept the brutal truth, that maybe no one is watching, that pain is random, and that nothing you do will echo past your final breath. Faith becomes a shield, not against evil, but against despair. It soothes the terror of meaninglessness, but it does so by asking you to look away from injustice that goes unpunished, away from prayers that dissolve into silence, away from the innocent who die screaming while their killers prosper. Faith tells you it all makes sense if you just don't question too much, if you trust, if you surrender. But what you don't question, you never truly see, and what you surrender, you may never recover. So faith blinds, and in doing so it soothes. It replaces the ache of uncertainty with the anesthetic of belief. But behind that gentle comfort, behind the hymns and hallelujahs, the world still burns, the silence still rules, and your eyes, if ever opened, may not forgive you for what they were kept from seeing. You are born to disappear. From the moment you take your first breath, the countdown begins. You are born not to last, not to be remembered, not to leave an indelible mark, but to vanish, to be here for a blink of cosmic time and then gone without a trace. This isn't poetry, it's physics, it's biology, it's the cold mechanics of existence. You are entropy in motion, moving toward stillness, toward silence, toward nothing. Your skin renews and decays. Your cells die by the millions each day. Your memories fade even as you try to preserve them. Everything you are is in motion toward non-existence. And when the end comes, when your body finally stops, when your voice goes quiet, the world does not pause. There is no great reckoning, no lasting tribute. Life continues, indifferent and uninterrupted. You imagine legacy. You imagine your name passed on in stories, in blood, in photographs. But time doesn't hold on. Children forget, graves weather, history edits, and eventually no one remembers your favorite song, your laugh, your pain, your dreams. Even the deepest love will dissolve into nothingness across generations. Your face will disappear from every mind. Your name will be uttered for the last time by lips that won't even know what it meant. This is not tragedy. It is design. You are born into a system where vanishing is the rule. Your disappearance is not failure, it's fulfillment. It is the silent conclusion to a life that was never truly yours to keep. You are a brief flicker in the void, and one day soon, even the memory of your light will be gone. The cradle and the grave are neighbors. We like to believe that life is a long road, that birth is the beginning of a great journey, with time enough for dreams, for change, for redemption. But the truth is more intimate, more chilling. The cradle and the grave are not miles apart. They sit side by side like old friends, whispering across a narrow hallway. You are born already moving toward death. Every heartbeat is a quiet footstep toward that final stillness. From the moment you arrive, red-faced, wailing, fragile, the clock starts ticking. You are closer to your end than you can comprehend. And though we decorate that journey with milestones and illusions of progress, It is not a path you control. Life does not wait for you to be ready. It doesn't care if you're just getting started. For some, the cradle is the grave. For others, it only takes a few more steps. We push that truth away with rituals and plans, with education, ambition, love. But death watches from the same room we're born into. It doesn't come from afar. It's always here, patient, silent, sitting in the corner of every nursery, every school, every mirror. You live under its shadow, whether you acknowledge it or not. And when it finally comes, it doesn't always come with warning. It doesn't always feel fair, because life was never a contract. It was a breath, brief, unpromised. The cradle and the grave are not opposite ends of a line. They are two hands of the same clock, circling the same center. Tick, tock, welcome, goodbye. Power is a mirage over bones. Power dazzles. It commands rooms, bends knees, reshapes entire nations. To the hungry, it looks like salvation. To the broken, it promises control. But beneath every throne is a grave. Beneath every crown, a skull. Power is not strength. It is illusion, a flickering mirage stretched over a mountain of bones, built on the backs of those who were silenced, crushed, erased. Look closely at those who rule. Behind the velvet, the gold, the speeches, the flags, there is always blood. Armies march so kings can smile. Laws are written to protect thrones, not people. Every powerful institution has a graveyard hidden beneath its foundation. Forgotten workers, silenced dissenters, unnamed victims whose only sin was being in the way. You can't rise without stepping on someone, and if you rise high enough, you forget who you buried. But the mirage is convincing. People chase it for lifetimes, thinking that if they reach it, they will finally be safe. But power does not offer safety. It demands fear. It isolates. It corrupts. And those who hold it must constantly defend it, because it is always slipping, always rotting beneath their feet. They smile with empty eyes, fearing the day someone stronger, crueler, more desperate tears it away. And eventually, they all fall. The empires crumble, the statues topple, the names once whispered in awe become curses or punchlines. Their bones join the rest beneath the dust, because power doesn't last. It never did. It only looked real from far away, but up close, it's hollow, temporary, and built on ruin, a mirage shimmering over the bones of the forgotten. Memory lies and fades. We trust our memories like they are sacred truths, personal archives of who we are, what we've survived, what we've loved. But memory is not a library. It is a haunted house. The rooms shift, the lights flicker, the walls bleed fiction, and worst of all, we don't notice. Because memory doesn't just fade, it lies, it rewrites, it edits the past with trembling hands, replacing facts with feelings, clarity with distortion. You remember moments not as they were, but as you felt them. Your first heartbreak, your greatest joy, your deepest shame. They are all dressed in stories you've told yourself so many times, they've hardened into falsehoods. Every time you recall a memory, it changes, warping slightly, like a photograph left in the sun. And yet we cling to it, because memory is all we have to say, "This is who I am." But what happens when the pieces start to blur, when faces become unfamiliar, when voices you swore you'd never forget fade into static? What happens when the version of your life you've held on to turns out to be stitched together with fragments and illusions? You feel betrayal from your own mind, grief for moments that may not have existed the way you need them to. We pretend memory is a mirror, but it's more like water, deep, shifting, and dark. You reach for truth and come back with a handful of ghosts. You try to hold on, but time takes it anyway. And the most terrifying part isn't just that memory fades, it's that the parts that stay may never have been real at all. Everything sacred rots. We crown things sacred to protect them. Love, faith, family, truth. We elevate them, guard them, surround them with ritual and reverence, as if by naming them holy, We can freeze them in time, but nothing escapes decay, not even what we worship, especially not what we worship. The rot doesn't start with a bang. It begins quietly, beneath the surface, unnoticed until the stench reaches the heart. The church that once gave comfort becomes a prison of control. The belief that once saved you becomes a blade against others. The love that once felt divine curdles into obligation, resentment, or silence. We pretend these things are eternal, above erosion, above questioning. But the more sacred something is made, the more fragile it becomes. Because when it starts to fall apart, we can't admit it. We patch it. We lie for it. We bury the cracks beneath tradition, dogma, and nostalgia. The people we idolize, heroes, saints, parents, rot too. Their flaws are hidden, their sins reframed, until the truth no longer matters. But truth decays like anything else when it's kept in the dark too long. And once rot takes hold, what was sacred becomes grotesque, a mockery of what it was supposed to be. Even your most intimate beliefs, what you swear you die for, can turn on you, not because they weren't real, but because time devours reverence. Everything held too tightly begins to spoil. The gods fade, the vows break, the relics crumble. Nothing stays untouched, nothing remains holy. The sacred is not immune to entropy, it is its favorite meal, and one day, all that you built an altar to will collapse into dust with not even a prayer left to echo. Success is still annihilation in delay. You chase it like it's salvation. Success, the finish line, the summit, the shining proof that all the pain was worth it. You sacrifice sleep, time, love, sometimes even your soul, to reach it. And when you do, there's applause, there's praise, there's a fleeting rush that feels like purpose. But underneath it all, a darker truth waits quietly. Success is not escape. It is not immortality. It is merely annihilation, delayed. Climbing higher does not change what waits at the bottom. You can amass power, wealth, recognition. You can be crowned, adored, remembered for a while. But the void is patient. Time does not care what you've built. Your victories still end in silence. Your legacy still feeds the worms. The collapse still comes. Worse, success often blinds you to this. It wraps you in momentum, in noise, in distraction. You feel untouchable. You believe maybe for a moment that you've outrun the nothingness. But death does not flinch at your resume. Decay does not read your biography. And when the lights go out, they go out the same way for kings and beggars, artists and accountants, winners and the forgotten. Even while you're alive, success brings its own quiet erasure. It replaces who you were with who you must be to maintain it. You lose things in the climb, innocence, relationships, time you can never reclaim. And when you finally stop and look around, you may wonder if the person who wanted this is still even inside you. Because success isn't the opposite of destruction. It's just a slower version of it, a prettier mask over the same vanishing. Annihilation in a suit and tie. Words are not permanent. We wrap our truths in words. We beg, confess, love, rage, vow, all through language, believing it to be our anchor in a world that forgets. We write to be remembered. We speak to be understood. We etch promises into skin and stone and believe they'll last forever. But they won't. Words are not permanent. They are breath, vibration, ink that fades, files that corrupt. They are fragile symbols on a page destined for rot. The things you say with your whole soul, the apologies, the declarations, the last words whispered to someone slipping away, none of them are immune. They will be misheard, misread, rewritten, or lost entirely. What was once profound becomes cliché. What once moved hearts becomes outdated, replaced by newer syntax, newer voices. Even sacred texts are edited. Even famous quotes are misattributed, twisted, commercialized, stripped of their origin. Think of all the words you've forgotten, the books you once loved, the letters you once reread with shaking hands, the conversations that shaped your life, they dissolve. Memory weakens them. Time rewrites them. Even language itself betrays you. The meanings change. The metaphors die. You can speak your truth into the world, but the world does not promise to remember it or to care. And one day, even your name, those few syllables meant to define your entire being, will be nothing more than a sound no one says. Words vanish, not with a scream, but a whisper, not in fire, but in silence. And all the things you meant will fade like they were never spoken at all, because words, for all their beauty, are ash pretending to be stone. Every savior becomes soil. We exalt them, saviors, prophets, icons of change. We carve their names into monuments and whisper their stories like sacred scripture. They come wrapped in hope, clothed in sacrifice, walking into the fire while others run. They bleed for ideals, stand against monsters, give everything for those who cannot fight. And for a moment, we believe they are more than human, that they are untouchable, eternal, but they're not. Every savior becomes soil. No matter how bright they burn, the ground still waits. Their lungs still fail. Their skin still decays. Their hearts, no matter how pure, still stop. The crowds will cheer. The masses will mourn. But time doesn't pause for legends. Death doesn't kneel for greatness. It swallows them like anyone else. The martyr and the murderer rot the same. You can preserve their image. You can canonize their words. But the body is gone. The voice silenced. And the memory, no matter how cherished, begins to erode with each generation. History rewrites. Context fades. What remains is a statue collecting dust, a name recited without understanding. Their humanity, flawed, desperate, beautiful, is reduced to symbol until even the symbol crumbles. And the bitter truth is this: some of them never asked to be saviors. Some just stood up because no one else would. Some died wondering if it was worth it. But the soil doesn't care. It accepts them without question, without reverence. Every savior becomes part of the earth, unseen, unfelt, forgotten. And we, still waiting for salvation, walk above their graves like nothing was ever given. Comfort is temporary anesthesia. Comfort whispers to you like a lullaby. It tells you it's safe now, that the pain is over, that you can exhale and rest. It wraps around you in soft beds, familiar faces, warm meals, and quiet routines. But make no mistake, comfort is not salvation. It is not healing. It is anesthesia. It numbs the wound, but it never removes the blade. You feel peace for a while. You laugh, you forget, you let yourself believe that the worst is behind you. But beneath the surface, the rot continues. The silence only hides the ticking. The ache waits like a buried scream, patient and alive. Comfort does not erase suffering. It sedates it, buys you time before the next blow lands. And it will land. People build whole lives chasing this anesthesia. They trade dreams for security. They swallow truth to keep the peace. They stay in hollow relationships, in dead-end jobs, in false faiths, just to avoid the sting of the cold world outside. But comfort doesn't save you. It only delays the reckoning. And when reality returns, and it always does, it feels sharper, crueler, because you dared to believe you had outrun it. Worse still, the anesthesia wears off slowly. You don't realize it's happening until you wake in the dark, alone, disoriented, wondering where the warmth went. That's the curse of comfort. It never tells you when it's leaving. It just fades. And when it does, all that remains is the pain you never faced, now louder for having been silenced. Comfort isn't truth. It's the dream you beg not to wake from, knowing deep down the real world is still waiting, knives out. There's no one to apologize. To you carry guilt like a second skin. The things you said, the things you didn't, the people you hurt, the ones you couldn't save. You replay the scenes in your mind over and over, thinking maybe, just maybe, if you could find the right words, the right gesture, the right apology, it might all feel less unbearable. But here's the truth you refuse to say aloud. Sometimes there's no one left to apologize to. People disappear. Sometimes they leave, sometimes they die. Sometimes they change so completely that the version of them you wronged no longer exists, and the apology you craft, perfect and trembling, has nowhere to land. You whisper it into the dark, into the mirror, into the hollow ache where a person used to be, and nothing answers. Even worse, sometimes the apology is rejected, not because it wasn't sincere, but because time has already moved on without you. Their pain hardened into something unrecognizable. Your remorse arrives too late, like flowers on a grave, and you realize regret does not guarantee forgiveness, and forgiveness does not undo the damage. You want redemption. You want closure. You want someone to look you in the eye and say it's okay. But the world doesn't promise resolution. It only promises consequences, and when those consequences have stripped away the connection, the presence, the possibility, your guilt becomes a ghost that only haunts you. There's no one to apologize to, and that's what makes it worse. The silence doesn't judge you. It doesn't absolve you. It just stares, and in that silence, your sorry echoes forever. Unheard, unanswered, unforgiven. All stories end in silence. Every story begins with breath, with the first cry, the first word, the first spark of something that demands to be heard. We speak, we write, we sing, we confess. We build our lives like narratives, stitching together memories into meaning, pain into purpose, moments into arcs. We are desperate for a story that matters, but no matter how beautifully it's told, no matter how long it's lived, every story ends the same way, in silence. The silence doesn't care if the tale was tragic or triumphant. It doesn't ask if the ending was just or if the hero got what they deserved. It simply comes, quiet, unstoppable, and when it arrives, the voice falters, the pen stills, the heartbeat that carried the narrative forward stops mid-sentence, and everything after that is nothing. You can try to pass it on, write it down, tell your children, record your truth, but even that only delays the inevitable. Voices fade, paper burns, files are erased. The people who remember you will forget. The ones who hear your story next will twist it. Eventually, no one will know it was ever yours, and the silence that follows will not feel tragic. It will feel natural, because that's how all stories end, not with a bang, but with a vanishing breath. The universe does not keep a library. It does not archive your pain or your poetry. What you were, what you said, what you believed, it all sinks beneath the weight of time until not even an echo remains. Silence is not the absence of story. It is the final chapter written in nothing, the one chapter that never fades because it was always waiting. Progress leads to extinction too. We worship progress like a god, its altar built on steel and glass, its gospel sung in data and innovation. Every invention is hailed as evolution, every breakthrough as salvation. We call it forward, unstoppable, and divine, convinced that progress will save us from ourselves. But what we never admit, what we refuse to face, is that progress doesn't only build, it destroys, it accelerates, and it kills. Progress leads to extinction too. Every step forward tears something behind it apart. Forests fall for factories, species vanish beneath highways, silence is suffocated by machines. In our rush to dominate nature, we forget we are part of it. We poison the air in the name of speed, drown the oceans in the name of commerce, strip the land bare to power artificial suns. And we call it victory, we call it civilization. But the line between brilliance and annihilation is thin and shrinking. The weapons got smarter, the surveillance got quieter, the comforts became cages. The machines we built to serve us now learn faster than we do. We cracked the code of creation, and now we tamper with life itself, rewriting DNA like it's software, playing gods with trembling hands, and still we call it progress. But ask yourself, Progress toward what? A world more efficient but less alive? A future more connected but less human? We burn faster now, not brighter. The very momentum we praise may be the thing that carries us off the cliff, because nature doesn't care how advanced we become. When we fall like everything else, and the future we've built may be the last one we'll ever see. The final truth is emptiness. Strip everything away: belief, success, memory, love, and what remains? Not revelation, not enlightenment, emptiness, cold, indifferent, unshaped void. This is the truth that waits behind every mask, at the end of every question, beneath the last layer of meaning we try so desperately to hold on to. The truth isn't divine, it isn't comforting, it's absence, a silence so complete it doesn't even echo. We fill our lives with noise to drown it out: jobs, relationships, distractions, faiths, philosophies. We build identities, chase legacy, write poems, have children, scream into the abyss, hoping it will blink, speak, notice. But the abyss doesn't speak, because it isn't there to listen. It isn't there at all. It's the shape of nothing, the shadow of meaningless space stretching beyond your comprehension. And when you finally stop running, when loss strips you bare, when the applause fades, when love dies and leaves you with only memory, you glimpse it. The terrifying stillness, the absence of plan, the brutal clarity that no one is coming, that all of it, the dreams, the pain, the beauty, was movement against a backdrop that never moved. We create meaning the way a child draws gods in the sand, believing they are eternal, while the tide waits without malice to wash it all away. The final truth isn't cruel. It doesn't need to be. It just is. Unyielding, impersonal, empty, and when you stare into it long enough, you understand there was never an answer coming, just this vast, aching hollowness that holds everything and still somehow feels like nothing at all. Rebellion dies, too. There's a certain fire in rebellion, a raw, defiant energy that feels immortal while it burns. The raised fists, the torn flags, the shouted truths hurled into the face of power. You feel like you're part of something larger than life, like your rage might bend the world. But every fire, no matter how righteous, flickers. Every uprising, no matter how pure, bleeds. Rebellion dies too. History is littered with revolts turned to ash, the names of martyrs chiseled into stone, then ignored. The cries for freedom drowned out by the same systems they tried to destroy, now stronger, smarter, rebranded. What began as a revolution becomes a trend, then a memory, then nothing, and the blood that soaked the ground, forgotten under parking lots and shopping centers. Even the rebels themselves break down. They age, they compromise. Some sell out, some are broken, some are erased. Their voices, once thunder, become whispers, then silence. The movements they started get diluted, softened, sanitized into something marketable. The anger becomes a hashtag, the vision becomes a slogan, and slowly the rebellion becomes part of the very structure it once tried to shatter. You want to believe resistance lives forever, that the truth cannot be buried, but it can. It often is. The world has crushed better rebels than you, and for every torch passed on, 10 more are extinguished in silence. Rebellion may feel immortal, but it bleeds like anything else. It dies from bullets, from betrayal, from exhaustion, from time, from forgetting. The machine is vast, and sometimes the scream is swallowed whole. Compassion is not protection. You may believe that if you lead with kindness, the world will be kind in return. That if you show compassion, genuine, open-hearted compassion, it will shield you. That it will soften the blows, earn mercy, build safety. But compassion is not a shield. It is not armor. It does not repel cruelty. It does not stop betrayal. It does not make the knives hesitate before they pierce you. To care deeply in this world is to open yourself to ruin. Compassion makes you vulnerable. It keeps your chest exposed while others guard theirs with steel. It makes your hands open when the world reaches with claws. And the irony is cruel, because your empathy will not always be reciprocated. Often, it will be exploited, taken, mocked, left bleeding. You may pour yourself out to someone who only wants to drink. You may save someone who later watches you drown. The stories lie. They tell you that kindness wins, that love redeems, that mercy returns. But life doesn't work like that. Sometimes, the more you care, the more you hurt. Sometimes, your compassion only makes you easier to break. And yet, you keep giving, because that's who you are. That's what you believe makes you human. But know this, the universe is not watching. The scales are not balancing, and your goodness does not make you immune. You can love fiercely and still be abandoned. You can forgive endlessly and still be destroyed. Compassion is beautiful, yes, but it is not protection. It is an open wound that never fully closes, and sometimes it's the very thing that leads you to the edge. Survival is not triumph. We idolize survival. We treat it as proof of strength, of worth, of some noble victory over fate. If you made it through, you're a hero. If you endured, you're supposed to be proud. But survival is not triumph. It is often just the absence of death. It's crawling through fire, bleeding from wounds no one sees, and waking up only to face the same storm again. It's not winning. It's not overcoming. It's just not being gone. The world loves stories of survival, but only the sanitized ones, the ones with happy endings, with redemption arcs, with neat bows tied around the pain. No one wants to hear what survival actually feels like, the guilt, the emptiness, the way it steals your voice and leaves you afraid of joy. They don't talk about how surviving sometimes means becoming someone you no longer recognize, hardened, detached, numb. It changes you, and not always into something stronger. Sometimes survival means you were lucky. Sometimes it means someone else wasn't. Sometimes it means you did what you had to. Things you'll never speak aloud. There is no medal for that. No celebration for the parts of you that had to die so the rest could keep breathing. You can survive and still be broken. You can survive and wish you hadn't. You can survive and carry a silence so heavy it drowns every moment that comes after. Survival isn't glory. It's a scar that never quite heals, a breath taken in the ruins, and calling it triumph doesn't make the ruins disappear. No victory is eternal. You fight, you sacrifice, you bleed and claw and crawl toward the summit they promised would last. You endure pain, betrayal, fear, just to grasp that fleeting thing we call victory. And when you finally hold it in your trembling hands, when the world goes quiet and you hear the echo of your triumph, something inside whispers what you've tried so hard to ignore. This won't last. Victory is a flame caught in wind. No matter how hard you protect it, time will smother it. The applause dies. The headlines fade. The strength you summoned begins to rot into exhaustion. What you built, power, status, achievement, will one day fall into dust, twisted by others, forgotten by history, or simply undone by time's slow, merciless pull. You do not get to keep what you win. You get to hold it for a while until your hands grow weak and the world takes it back. Even empires crumble. Even legends are erased. The greatest revolutions are swallowed by new regimes. The loudest voices go quiet. What felt permanent becomes a footnote, then a question, then silence. And no matter how many times you win, it's never enough. You will always have to defend it, relive it, prove it mattered. But the world moves on. It always moves on. We chase eternal victory because we fear what waits without it. Obscurity, irrelevance, the unraveling of what we believed gave us worth. But there is no permanence, no final triumph. The mountaintop always erodes, and one day the world will forget you ever climbed it at all. Every truth erodes. You want truth to be a foundation, solid, eternal, immune to time, something you can stand on when everything else falls apart. But truth isn't stone, it's salt in the rain. Given long enough, even the clearest truth dissolves into something unrecognizable. It doesn't shatter, it fades, quietly, patiently, completely. First come the questions, subtle doubts that chip at the edges. Then come the reinterpretations, the edits, the filters of culture and power. What was once undeniable becomes contested, then debated, then rewritten. People forget, others reshape, and those who come after accept the new version without even knowing there was another. Your truth becomes their myth, or worse, their lie. Even your personal truths aren't safe. The things you were certain of at 20 become foggy by 40. Memories twist, stories bend. You start to wonder if what you felt was real, or just something you needed to believe at the time. Your identity, your values, your meaning, they all change. And with them, the truths you built your life upon. Worse still, the erosion is quiet. You don't see it happening. You think you're standing firm until one day you look down and realize the ground beneath you is gone. No collapse, just absence. You're left holding fragments, trying to remember what they used to mean. This is the cost of time, the price of history, the nature of minds that forget, of worlds that move on. Every truth erodes, not because it was false, but because nothing is immune to the slow, devouring pull of silence. Time laughs at ambition. You build your life on ambition, the drive to rise, to create, to conquer. You chase titles, build legacies, stretch yourself thin across endless goals, believing that effort carves meaning into the void. You tell yourself it matters, that if you just reach a little higher, run a little faster, achieve enough, time will make room for you. But time does not pause for the ambitious. It does not reward your striving. It watches and laughs. You can burn decades climbing the mountain, only to find the summit already crumbling beneath your feet. You may think you're racing toward immortality, but time is not your opponent. It's the track itself, eroding beneath every step. While you plan for 10 years ahead, time rearranges the map. While you fight to leave a mark, time sharpens its eraser. What you build may be grand, your ambition may roar, but time has heard louder. It has watched empires fall mid-sentence, revolutions end in dust, and dreams, no matter how noble, turn to footnotes or ash. Time is not impressed by your urgency. It does not flinch at your vision boards or sleepless nights. It outlasts all of it. And then it forgets. Even if you win, if you succeed beyond measure, what then? You'll still be claimed by the clock. Your body will weaken, your mind will slow, the fire will dim, and time will move on, indifferent, dragging your victories into silence like it has done to billions before you. Ambition may defy gravity, but it does not defy time, because time always smiles at your plans and then takes everything. You are your own betrayer. There is no villain more intimate than the one wearing your skin, no betrayal more precise than the one whispered by your own voice. You want to believe your wounds came from the outside, from the liars, the lovers who left, the world that never gave you what you deserved. But look closer. The deepest scars were carved by your own hand. You are your own betrayer. You silenced yourself when you should have spoken. You stayed when your soul screamed to run. You lowered your head to be accepted, bit your tongue to be loved, bent yourself into someone else's shape just to be seen. You knew what you needed and you turned away from it. Again and again, you let your fear speak louder than your truth. You called it survival, but it was surrender. You convinced yourself you weren't enough. You doubted your dreams, minimized your pain, forgave what was unforgivable just to avoid being alone. You made choices, some quiet, some violent, that you still bleed from. And the cruelest part? You remember every one. You carry them. Pretend you don't. But at night, when it's quiet, they come back like ghosts. Your voice saying yes when it meant no. Your hands letting go of things you were meant to hold. Your heart watching doors close that you never dared to open. No one knows how to hurt you better than you do. No one else has the keys to the places you hide. And while the world may break you, it's the betrayal from within that leaves the cracks that never close. Forgiveness doesn't undo reality. We're taught that forgiveness is transcendence, that it heals wounds, restores peace, sets both victim and offender free. But beneath the poetry lies a colder truth. Forgiveness may bring comfort, but it does not erase what happened. It doesn't rewind time. It doesn't resurrect what was lost, rebuild what was broken, or unscar what was wounded. Forgiveness is not magic. It is not a cleansing flame. It is a choice made while standing in the ashes. You can forgive someone who shattered you and still carry the fracture. You can speak the words, "I forgive you," and still wake in the night remembering the look on their face when they hurt you. The trauma still pulses. The trust remains dead. The consequences echo long after the apology fades. And even if the one who hurt you changes, grows, weeps, begs for redemption, it changes nothing about the pain that was already carved into your reality. Forgiveness, when real, is not a return to how things were. That version of life is gone. It died the moment the damage was done. You can rebuild, but you'll never get back what was untouched, unbroken, innocent. And sometimes forgiveness becomes pressure, an expectation, a moral performance meant to ease someone else's guilt. But even then, the past doesn't shift. It stays concrete and unyielding. There's power in forgiveness, yes, but not the kind we wish for, not the power to undo, only the power to continue despite what cannot be undone. Reality remains brutal, unchanged, and forgiveness simply learns how to breathe beside it. The meaning you cling to is melting. You've spent your whole life crafting it, this fragile thing called meaning. You built it from childhood dreams, from stories you inherited, from love that felt eternal, from causes that gave you purpose when nothing else could. You held on to it like a lantern in the dark, telling yourself it would guide you, that it would make the pain worthwhile. But now, in the quiet hours when no one's watching, you feel it slipping, melting, dissolving between your fingers like snow you tried too hard to hold. The words that once gave you comfort ring hollow. The people who swore it all mattered have either changed their minds or vanished altogether. Even your own convictions begin to tremble. What once felt unshakable is now soft and formless, and you can't tell if you're grieving the loss or just too numb to care. The things you gave years to, the relationships, the causes, the truths, feel like statues left in the sun, beautiful once, but now dripping, warping, collapsing into unrecognizable shapes. And you panic. You reach for more meaning, desperate to replace what's fading. A new goal, a new identity, a new belief. But each one melts faster than the last, because deep down you already know meaning was never solid. It was never safe. It was a story you whispered to yourself when the silence got too loud. And now the silence is winning. You're not losing your meaning. You're waking up to the fact that it was never truly yours to keep. And there's no manual for what comes next, only the haunting awareness that everything you once stood on is turning to water, and you are already sinking. Every empire falls into myth. Empires rise with fire in their chest and steel in their grip. They declare themselves eternal, blessed, chosen. They pave roads across continents, build monuments to themselves, carve their names into maps, into stone, into blood. For a while, they seem unstoppable, too vast to fail, too feared to fade. But time is not impressed. Time is patient, and time waits. Because every empire, no matter how powerful, no matter how ruthless, eventually falls, not just in battle, but in memory. The fall doesn't always come with fire. Sometimes it comes in silence, an economic slide, a weakening heartbeat, a quiet fracture of faith. The citizens don't notice at first. They still wave the flags, sing the anthems, cling to the old stories. But decay creeps in, corruption, complacency, division. The statues erode, the parades shrink, the gods lose their thunder, and one day what once ruled the world becomes a history lesson, a myth. What's left is not truth, it's narrative, warped, romanticized, simplified. Generations that never knew the weight of its boots will tell stories of its glory or its cruelty. Its triumphs will be exaggerated, its crimes softened or sharpened, depending on who's writing. The empire becomes a symbol, a legend, stripped of complexity, devoured by time's hunger for clean endings. And those who once trembled beneath its banners? Forgotten, buried. The names of emperors rot in forgotten languages. The walls crumble into dust. What remains is a myth, told not for truth, but for comfort, because even the mightiest civilizations are only temporary sentences in the vast, unfeeling novel of time. Your body is your prison until it's your tomb. You live inside a cage of flesh and bone, a vessel you never chose, with needs you cannot escape and limits you did not agree to. From your first breath, your body owns you, demanding food, sleep, obedience. You are chained to its urges, its failings, its slow decay. You are told to love it, worship it, sculpt it. But how can you worship a cell? It controls you. When it hungers, you must feed it. When it breaks, you must suffer. You try to master it, but it reminds you daily that you are not in control. You ache, you bleed, you tire, and slowly, inevitably, you rot. No matter how much you exercise, how well you eat, how much you pray or punish yourself, the bars never open. Your body will fail. It will betray you. It already is. You are judged by it, desired or dismissed because of it. You walk into rooms and are seen not as a soul, but as a shape, an object, a standard, a target. And so you spend your life trying to decorate your cell, to make your prison beautiful, acceptable, strong. But no matter how lovely the walls, they are still closing in. And when the time comes, your body does not set you free. It buries you. It becomes your final trap, collapsing inward until you are gone. There is no release, no resurrection. Your body is not your temple. It is the coffin you carry with you every day until the world stops pretending you were ever anything more. Silence wins every conversation. Eventually, no matter how loud your voice, no matter how sharp your words, how impassioned your plea or relentless your argument, silence always wins. Every conversation, every confession, every scream or whisper eventually collapses into it. It waits, patient and undefeated, swallowing every truth, every lie, every desperate attempt to be understood. You can fight it for a while, but you will lose. We talk to be heard, to connect, to matter. We spill our hearts, beg for understanding, sharpen our tongues to defend, explain, persuade. We argue to prove we exist. But silence doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't blink. It doesn't justify. It just waits behind every dialogue, between every breath, and especially after the last word is spoken. The worst part isn't the silence from others. It's the silence that follows after you've said everything, when you've explained yourself for the last time, when the person you love doesn't respond, when the apology doesn't bring them back, when the truth doesn't change a thing. The silence that comes then isn't empty. It's final. It's the sound of the end claiming the last word. Even memories fade into it. Even grief quiets with time. You may think you'll always remember what was said, what was screamed, but eventually the words blur, the edges soften, and only the silence remains. It erases, it outlasts. And one day, your voice will stop too, not because you ran out of things to say, but because silence came, like it always does, and reminded you, in the end, all conversation ends with its closing hand. Nothing is owed to you, not even life. You were not promised this breath. You were not guaranteed tomorrow. The world does not owe you fairness, love, comfort, or even a full heartbeat. Yet we are raised to believe otherwise, to expect justice, to anticipate reward, to cling to the illusion that existence comes with entitlement. But the truth is sharper, more merciless. You are owed nothing, not by God, not by fate, not by the universe, not even by the skin that holds you. Life is not a contract. It is a chance, random, unearned, and often indifferent. You can do everything right. You can be kind, patient, loyal, hardworking. You can suffer with grace, give without asking, love with everything you have, and still be broken, still be left behind, still be erased without explanation, because the machinery of existence doesn't recognize effort. It doesn't see you. It simply spins. And yet, when things fall apart, when pain arrives without cause, when death comes too soon or love disappears too fast, we ask, why me? As if there should be a reason, as if someone failed to deliver what was owed. But there is no ledger, no balance sheet, no universal parent watching to make it fair. Fairness is a human fantasy, invented to soothe the unbearable truth of chaos. Even life itself is not a gift freely given. It is borrowed, temporary, fleeting, and it can be taken without warning, without mercy, without reason. To live expecting something in return is to walk blindfolded into a storm. Nothing is promised, nothing is protected. You are not owed even the time it takes to read this sentence. And still, you hope. There is no cosmic balance. We want to believe there's an order to this chaos, a silent, unseen justice that ensures the scales are eventually leveled, that the good are rewarded, the wicked undone, and that for every agony there will be an equal moment of grace. But look closely, look honestly. The world does not work that way. There is no balance, no divine math tallying your suffering and handing you peace in return. There is only chance, momentum, and blind unfolding. Children starve while liars thrive. Kindness is buried beneath cruelty. The murderer dies warm in his bed, while the innocent rot beneath flags folded too tightly. Bad things happen to good people not as tests, not as part of some grand moral calculus, but because nothing is watching. The storm doesn't care where it lands. The cancer doesn't ask who deserves it, and the universe doesn't flinch at your prayers for fairness. Balance is a story we tell ourselves to survive grief. It gives structure to pain, a reason to keep going, a belief that life is a pendulum, and your moment of light is just one swing away. But many die in the dark waiting for that swing. Many suffer endlessly with no reward, no reversal, no explanation. We want the cosmos to be just, to make meaning of misery, but the stars don't blink for us. The planets do not orbit around morality. Nature devours the gentle as easily as the cruel. There is no sacred ledger in the sky. There is only what happens and what doesn't. And the brutal truth is, sometimes the weight never evens out. Sometimes it only breaks you. You are not whole, only assembled. You tell yourself you are a person, a singular, solid being with purpose, with identity, with clarity. But the truth is far more fragile. You are not whole. You are an assembly, a patchwork, a fractured collage of experiences, borrowed behaviors, absorbed voices, and unfinished wounds. You are pieces stitched together by memory and fear, shame and desire, love and survival. Your laugh might sound like your mother's. Your rage might echo your father's. Your insecurities were gifted to you by strangers who never knew your name. You wear the masks others handed you, some lovingly, some with knives, and you forget which parts are yours. You mimic what was safe, bury what was rejected, sharpen what was praised. You learn to hide the pieces that tremble and polish the ones that perform. And still you wonder why you feel hollow, why in moments of silence you feel like a stranger in your own skin. It's because you are. You were built by the world before you could choose, shaped by trauma you didn't invite, molded by systems you didn't create. The self you claim to know is a reflection, not a root. And when it cracks, when grief hits, when truth cuts deep, When love leaves, you see the fragments, how easily they fall apart, how nothing beneath them feels solid. You try to hold it together, to pretend it's still you, but you are not a statue. You are a shattered mirror glued back just enough to keep walking. The world praises wholeness, but wholeness is a myth. You are assembled, you always have been, and one day something will pull hard enough that the pieces won't fit again. Your suffering has no audience. We suffer hoping someone will see, that someone will recognize the weight we carry in silence. We cry behind closed doors, but still glance around, unconsciously begging the universe or anyone for witness. We want our pain to mean something, to matter, to be validated, but the truth is far crueler. Your suffering has no audience. No omniscient gaze watches you shatter at 3 a.m. No higher force takes note when you break, quietly, in a crowded room. The world doesn't pause when your heart does. The sun rises on your worst day like nothing happened. Traffic flows, people laugh, birds sing, and your anguish echoes in a vacuum. Even those closest to you rarely see it. You try to explain, and they nod. They offer platitudes, but their eyes drift. Not because they don't care, but because they can't feel what you feel. No one can. Pain is a solitary cell with no window. You can scream all you want, but no sound escapes that deep. No translation captures it, so you carry it. You learn to smile through it, to function with it lodged in your chest like shrapnel. And part of you hopes someone will look deep enough and say, I see it, I see you. But that moment rarely comes. Most of the time, you suffer alone, not because you failed to speak, but because the world was never listening. Your suffering is not a performance. There is no audience, no applause, no rescue, only you, and the aching knowledge that pain, like truth, is felt in isolation and buried without ceremony. Gratitude cannot prevent oblivion. Be thankful, they say. Count your blessings. Appreciate what you have while it lasts, as if gratitude is armor against loss, as if thanking the stars will keep them from dying. But the truth is cruel and simple. Gratitude changes nothing. It softens the soul, perhaps. It brings momentary peace, but it cannot stop the fall. It cannot preserve what is meant to vanish. Gratitude cannot prevent oblivion. You can hold a moment with reverence. You can weep from the beauty of it, knowing how rare it is. You can whisper thank you to the sky for the love you feel, the warmth you find, the safety you cling to. But it doesn't freeze time. It doesn't make the moment permanent. The more grateful you are, the harder it is to watch it disappear. And it always disappears. The people you love will leave, by choice or by death. The things that bring you joy will decay. Even your memories will betray you, slipping into haze no matter how tightly you hold them. You can fall to your knees in awe and appreciation, and still, the universe will turn its face. Gratitude cannot stop the rot. It cannot slow the erosion. It cannot silence the fact that all things, every smile, every sunrise, every heartbeat, are borrowed, and the lender never forgets. We are told gratitude is a remedy, but it's not. It's a eulogy spoken too early, a way to say goodbye while pretending we're still holding on. You can love something with all your soul, thank it with your last breath, and still watch it dissolve into the dark as if it had never been. Understanding changes. Nothing. We believe that if we understand something, why it happened, what it means, where it came from, it will hurt less. That knowledge will somehow unlock peace. That clarity will soothe the wound. But understanding is not healing. It is not power. It is not redemption. It's just light shining on the wreckage, and nothing about the wreckage moves. You can dissect your trauma down to its roots. You can map every betrayal, decode every silence, name every monster that ever breathed in your direction. You can trace pain back through generations and pinpoint the exact moment everything cracked. And yet, nothing changes. The scars remain. The grief stays sharp. The emptiness does not soften just because you understand where it came from. Understanding is a cruel gift. It strips away confusion, but leaves the consequences untouched. It gives you language for your suffering, but no escape from it. You begin to see clearly, only to realize there's nowhere to go, that the damage has already been done, that the people who broke you will never care why, that knowing why you fell doesn't lift you off the ground. You may understand why they left, why they hurt you, why you failed, why the world is this way, but the world does not apologize, and it does not repair itself under the weight of your insight. Some truths cannot be unlearned. Some pain is not a puzzle, it's just a fact you now understand better than anyone, and still, nothing changes, because understanding doesn't undo, it only reveals what can never be undone. The future forgets the past, completely. You cling to the past like it matters, your victories, your heartbreaks, the names etched into your memory like stone. You think what you've lived through will echo, will shape the world to come, will be remembered in stories, in gratitude, in legacy. But the future is not a reverent student. It does not study the past. It forgets it, ruthlessly, completely, without apology. Time does not preserve, it replaces. One generation's defining moment is the next trivia. The wars that tore souls apart are now just chapters in textbooks barely opened. The beliefs people died for become punchlines. The buildings that held lifetimes are knocked down to make room for new ones. The future doesn't look back. It consumes. Even your personal past, your heartbreaks, your firsts, your pain, your love, they vanish into the noise. The people you swore you could never live without fade into strangers with familiar names. The songs that once broke you become background noise in a store. You forget what your father's voice sounded like, what your childhood home smelled like, and the world moves on even faster. History is not sacred. It is rewritten, edited, ignored, and eventually erased. Not maliciously, indifferently. The future doesn't care what it costs to build the present. It only wants more progress, more distraction, more noise. And in that noise, the past is smothered. You scream to be remembered, to matter beyond the moment, but the future isn't listening. It's already forgetting. And one day soon, everything you were, everything you loved, everything you fought for will be gone. Not mourned, not buried, just replaced. You'll never matter to the universe. It doesn't matter how loud you scream, how deeply you love, how fiercely you fight to leave your mark. On the scale of the universe, you are nothing, less than nothing. A flicker of thought in a dying brain on a pale rock orbiting a forgettable star. The universe does not know your name. It never will, and it will not pause for your birth, your death, or your grief. You'll never matter to it, not even as dust. You were not placed here with purpose. You were not chosen. You are the product of random collisions, chemical chances, billions of accidents stacked on top of one another until you became something that could ask why and never receive an answer. Your triumphs don't ripple through space. Your tragedies don't disturb the galaxies. The stars don't notice when your heart breaks. The planets don't blink when you disappear. This realization doesn't come all at once. It creeps in when the person you loved forgets your voice, when your greatest efforts are met with silence, when the sky remains indifferent no matter how badly you need a sign. You begin to see the scale of it all, the immensity, and how small you truly are. You may build, love, suffer, dream, but the cosmos remains untouched. It does not care if you believe in it. It does not reward your faith or punish your cruelty. It simply spins, as it always has, as it always will, long after your bones have turned to ash and your name has been swallowed by time. In the eyes of the universe, you were never more than a moment, and not even one that mattered. All joy ends without exception. Joy is fleeting, and it knows it. It arrives like sunlight between clouds, warm, blinding, and brief. For a moment, the world feels bearable. You laugh without fear. You breathe without pain. You forget the weight you carry. But joy doesn't stay. It can't. It's not built to endure. It's a flicker, a tremor in the void, a soft gasp before the silence returns, and it always does. We chase joy like salvation. We immortalize it in photos, cling to it in memory, beg it to last just a little longer. But the clock is always ticking. The party ends, the love fades, the dream collapses, the child grows up, the sunset goes dark, and you're left staring at the spot where joy used to be, pretending that echo is enough. But it never is. Joy leaves holes. It teaches you what life could be, then reminds you that it isn't. The cruelty lies in its beauty. The more joy you feel, the sharper its absence. The higher it lifts you, the harder the fall. And no matter how much you brace for it, it still hurts. Because every joy contains the seed of its own ending. Every smile knows it will be a memory. Every moment of connection comes with the quiet knowledge that it cannot last. We want joy to mean something more. We want it to justify the suffering, but it doesn't. It doesn't erase what came before. It doesn't prevent what comes after. All joy ends without mercy, without fairness, and without exception. And what's left is the ache of remembering something beautiful that could never stay. All light is eventually swallowed. Light gives us hope. It cuts the dark. It lets us believe we can see, that we can understand, that there's something waiting beyond the shadows. We follow it like salvation, whether it's a sunrise after sleepless nights, a voice in the dark that tells us to keep going, or a single truth we hold on to when everything else collapses. But no matter how fiercely it burns, all light is eventually swallowed. The universe itself proves this. Stars, colossal and defiant, still die. Their brilliance collapses inward, devoured by time and gravity, until all that remains is cold silence. Even the brightest supernova fades into dust, and we are no different. Your inner light, your passion, your hope, your joy, your will, it flickers, it fights, and one day it fades. Not always with violence. Sometimes it dims quietly, like a candle choking on its own wax, unnoticed until the dark feels normal again. You try to protect it. You wrap it in meaning, in purpose, in love. But the world is relentless. Disappointment chips at it. Grief poisons it. Betrayal snuffs it without warning. Even peace can be its enemy, lulling you into numbness until the fire inside you forgets how to burn. And when the light is gone, there is no ceremony, no farewell, just a shift, subtle and irreversible. The shadows no longer retreat when you move. The things you once saw clearly become vague outlines, unreachable, and all you're left with is a memory of how it once felt to see. Because the truth is as brutal as it is simple. No matter how strong the flame, the darkness waits, and it always wins. You exist in error, not design. You were not crafted. You were not planned. There was no blueprint drawn with care, no divine hands sculpting your soul from light and purpose. You were an accident, an unintended outcome of biological chaos, a glitch in the code of an uncaring universe. You exist not because you were meant to, but because no one was watching closely enough to stop it. You are the product of error, not design. From the moment of conception, everything about you was shaped by randomness. The genes that determine your body, your mind, your fears, your addictions, none of it was chosen. Your consciousness? A chemical storm that got just lucky enough to become self-aware. And with that awareness came the need for meaning. So you built gods, philosophies, flags, families, constructs to wrap around the truth like a blanket over broken glass. But the cracks remain. You feel it when you wake up empty, when you stare into the mirror and can't explain why you feel so far from yourself, when your body betrays you, when your mind turns against you. Design implies intention. Intention implies care. You had neither. You were thrown into existence like debris from a crash, and you're expected to thrive? You fight to make it make sense. You search for signs, symbols, answers, but the silence you meet is not mystical. It's mechanical. The world does not owe you understanding, because it never meant for you to be here. There is no meaning in an error, just consequence, just fallout. And you, aching, reaching, are its living, breathing aftermath. Grief never finds closure. They tell you it gets better. That grief has stages, like steps on a staircase leading towards something called acceptance, as if heartbreak is a problem to be solved, a wound that eventually seals. They speak of closure like it's a destination, one you arrive at when you've cried enough, talked enough, healed enough. But the truth is far crueler. Grief never finds closure. It only changes shape. At first, it consumes everything. It hijacks your body, tightens your chest, steals your breath, makes the world seem distant and cruel. You think of them constantly, their voice, their scent, the exact way they said your name. It hurts to breathe. You wait for the pain to stop, but it doesn't. It just softens. It becomes quieter, and that's when it becomes more dangerous, because everyone assumes you've moved on, but you haven't. You've just grown used to the weight. It hides beneath your smile, waits in the silence after laughter, slips into your dreams. The world expects you to be functional again, to talk about the weather, to smile in photos, but inside, there's a room that hasn't been touched since they left, a room that never gets light. Closure is a myth we invent to feel in control, but there is no closure. There is only memory, and memory never dies cleanly. It decays, it flickers, it stings. Grief lives in the spaces they used to fill. It doesn't end. It becomes part of you, a shadow stitched into your skin, a reminder that love, once real, leaves a wound that never truly seals. Everything ends mid-sentence. We think endings come with closure, that there will be final words, a perfect conclusion, a moment of peace before the lights go out. But life doesn't care for punctuation. There is no period, no farewell, no grand finale. Everything ends mid-sentence, cut off in the middle of becoming, in the breath before the next word, in the unfinished thought that never finds a voice, the conversation you were going to have, the apology you thought there would be time for, the love you meant to express after just one more day. Death doesn't wait for the sentence to finish. It interrupts. So does loss. So does time. People disappear without warning. Stories halt in motion. Plans are made in the morning and buried by nightfall. You don't get to say all the things. You won't get to finish what you started. The letter goes unwritten. The project half built. The child not held one last time. And the tragedy is not just the loss, but the incompleteness. The pieces left dangling in silence. The words caught in your throat long after the person is gone. We tell ourselves we have time, that we can finish the sentence tomorrow. But tomorrow doesn't always arrive, and when it doesn't, you're left haunted by fragments of what was, what almost was, what should have been. The world moves on, others forget, but you carry that unfinished sentence forever, looping in your mind, praying for an ending that will never come, because life doesn't wait for the last word. It just stops, and you're left holding a story that no one will finish. The universe owes no explanations. You search for meaning because the chaos terrifies you. You ask why the suffering, why the loss, why the randomness that rips lives apart without warning, without mercy. You whisper prayers into the silence. You scream questions into the void. But there is no answer, not because it's hidden, not because it's too profound to grasp, because there is none. The universe owes no explanations. It never has. It does not care what you believe. It does not pause to justify tragedy. A child dies. A storm tears through a city. A mind collapses under its own weight, and the stars keep spinning, mute and unmoved. We try to impose structure, invent gods, write philosophies that tame the chaos, but these are stories we tell to keep ourselves from breaking. The universe doesn't explain. It acts, indifferently, instinctively, without reason or regret. You were born into a machine too vast to comprehend, one that operates without ethics, without intention. Galaxies collide, species vanish, planets burn, not because they were bad, not because they failed, just because they did. And still, we beg the sky for clarity, for comfort, for something that tells us it all means something. But the sky says nothing. The silence isn't cruel, it's absolute. You will ask why your entire life. You may never stop, but understand this. The universe is not obligated to answer, not to you, not to anyone. Its only truth is motion. Its only promise is change. Everything else, meaning, justice, fairness, is what we invent to survive the unbearable fact that the world simply is, and it does not explain itself.